Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. We
Oh.
are live. Rick Alicia says hello. But yeah,
Hello there, Guff.
we are back. We're starting, as you can see, we're starting with volume 4 of Mushoku Tensei now. So we're halfway through the Demon Continent. We're going to be doing more in that area. I think we start off in Windport. But yeah, got a lot to go through. Shim is our reader for the night. So we'll probably be going through this pretty nicely. We'll have a good clip. But yeah, I'm going to be muted for most of the time. I'm going to be doing stuff in the background that honestly we should have taken care of earlier. My apologies for two things. Number one, I am updating all the stuff on YouTube, but most of volume 2 is gone because it never got uploaded to YouTube and it got deleted from Twitch.
Oh,
I am so sorry for that. I am so sorry for that. So we're missing part 2, part 3, and part 4. Rick Alicious, thank you for the Prime. Thank you for the 14 months. Appreciate the Prime. That being said, yes, that's where we're at right now. So I'm sorry that is missing. There is nothing that I can do about that. Yeah, I did not know that we were missing stuff. I thought I was keeping on top of this from week to week, and it turns out I wasn't. All of Volume 3 is up, and that will be going live and getting published. But yeah, I am so sorry that we are missing that content. Once again, guys, we are not 100%. We are not a substitute for the actual light novel, for reading the light novel or the audiobook. We're just a group of idiots that are doing this for fun. That being said, we are in fact idiots. So,
I mean,
yeah.
I mean that's surprising considering that you're implying Shim is also an idiot. I don't feel like he is one at all.
No, Shim can be an idiot at times.
Yeah.
No. A dummy is how I would describe him.
Oh.
It's more polite. It's more
Dummy?
It's more lighthearted.
Dummy? You're only saying that because he's dummy thick.
Oh yeah, see, there you go. See, I set it up and you nailed it.
I do work on it week to week.
Yeah,
I work out.
He's got that bakery going. He's got that bakery going in there. Yeah.
Oh god, right. Now we need to put him into like a Solid Snake cosplay.
All right, guys, that's it for all those announcements. I don't have anything at the moment that I can publicly talk about. So for now, we're just gonna chill and get to the reading. So
enjoy the Shem ASMR.
Yeah, I'm gonna start off.
I believe.
Yeah. I'm gonna start off and read that first little page, the excerpt, and then I'll kick it off over to you. It's nice when everyone is different, but it's even better when we're the same. Can't blame a guy for going with the flow. Author Brudius Greyrat. Translation Jean R.F. Maggot or Maggot. Maggot. And there you go.
Are you writing those excerpts again?
All right, there you go, guys. If you're reading along with us on Volume 4, there is the map of the six-sided world. So the Demon Continent and the city of Rikarisu, if you look at the top right of the map, it is the most northeastern side of the Demon Continent. That's around about where they were. That's where they ended up from the teleportation incident. And if you look to the far west over on the central continent, you see that big white empty circle. That's where they used to be. That's where Fatoa was. That's the Fatoa region. Yeah.
I see.
Yep. So there's that little stretch there. And yeah, now they're at Windport. So if you look back over to the Demon Continent on the eastern side of the map, at the very southern tip of the Demon Continent, that's Windport, and then Eastport is the next area that they're trying to get to. So that's what's going on here for the map and figuring out the layout. But yeah, when you see the anime, it doesn't really give you this good enough of a description. So just imagine they're having to go, like they have to go all the way south till they hit the Millis Continent. Then from the Millis Continent, they have to hit the most southern tip of the central continent, go all the way up there, make it back to the Fatoa region that is now empty, and that's why it took them 2 years to get all the way back. Also, Milicion, the the little section there of the oh god, I don't need you to search. I just want you to zoom in. Zoom. Why are you not zooming? Zoomies. Didn't you used to zoom in for me? What happened to that?
Oh,
Yeah. Just not zooming in on the map for me, and I'm very upset by this. Yeah. Okay. Well, going full screen does not help me. It's not zooming in on, I guess, this. It will only zoom in on Manhwa, I guess. But anyway, yeah, the Milicion is over there by the southwestern portion of the Milis continent. So just to give you an idea of where all those things are, they're also not showing the Sharon Kingdom yet, but later. All right, Shem, take it away.
Okay. Chapter 1, The Windport, or Windport. My name is Rudius Greyrat, and I'm a pretty boy who just celebrated my 11th birthday a few days ago. As a skilled magician, I've gained notoriety for my ability to use magic without chanting spells and my unique way of mixing the different elements. 1 year ago, I was caught in a magical disaster and teleported to the Demon Continent. My hometown was on the exact opposite side of the map in the Asura Kingdom's Vitola region, which meant I had to travel halfway across the world to get it back. I became an adventurer to earn money as I started out on the long voyage home. In the past year, I've successfully cut my way across the Demon Continent. Windport, the Demon Continent's one and only port city, was a townscape with rolling hills. From the entrance, you had a sweeping view of the entire city. Most of the houses were made with mud and stone in the continent's typical style, but there was the occasional wooden house here and there. At the edge of the city was the harbor. That, rather than the main entrance, was where most of the hubbub took place and the peddlers set up shop. It was a city with a flavor uniquely its own, different from the others I had seen before. Beyond the harbor, across from the city, the sea spread out vast and wide. When was the last time I had seen the ocean? Probably back when I attended a middle school on the coast. This world was different from ours, but the sea was not. It was the same blue, had the same sound of crashing waves and birds that looked just like seagulls. There were even sailboats. It was the first time I'd ever set my eyes on one. I saw them occasionally in movies, but seeing the real thing, made of wood with its cloth sails unfurled, gliding through the water, made my heart pound as if I were still a young boy. There must be some mechanism in this world that allowed a boat to sail against a headwind. Actually, considering the world I was in, maybe they propelled themselves forward using wind magic. Look! The moment we arrived in the city, the red-haired girl riding the lizard with me suddenly leaped up. Her name was Eris Boreas Greyrat. She was the granddaughter of Saros, the liege lord of Asura Kingdom's Vitola region, and also my pupil back when I worked as a tutor for their house. She was ferocious and spoiled rotten when we first met, but she became more flexible recently, enough to listen to what people had to say. She had been teleported together with me, and I had to see her safely back home. Look, Rudius, the ocean! The words that passed her lips were in fluent demon god tongue. I'd stressed the importance of speaking it all the time. Regerd and I also spoke in demon god tongue as much as possible. As a result, Eris's language abilities had increased dramatically as of late. It was as I suspected. The quickest way to improve in a foreign language was to use it as often as possible. Granted, Eris couldn't read or write in the language at all. It wasn't that difficult a language, but it also wasn't something that could be mastered in a year. On the other hand, I hadn't taught her any magic since coming to the Demon Continent. So not only could she not cast spells without chanting, but she had probably also forgotten the chants themselves. Eris, wait! Where are you going? We haven't even figured out where we're staying for the night. Eris stopped in her tracks when I called after her. This was the third time we had this exchange since we came to the Demon Continent. The first time she got lost, the second she got into a fight in the street corner. I wasn't going to have a third incident. Oh, yeah! I'll get lost again if we don't decide on an inn first. She bounded back to us, constantly glancing over her shoulder at the sea. Come to think of it, this was probably the first time she'd seen something like this. There were some rivers near Fatola, and apparently Saros took her there on his days off and let her play in the water. Sadly, I never went with them, so I had no idea how much she knew about bodies of water. Can we swim? I tilted my head at her words. You want to swim in the harbor? I do! I did want to see how sexy her body had gotten now that she was 13, but that desire was destined to remain unfulfilled. Namely because there was an important component missing from this equation. You don't have a swimsuit, do you? I asked. What the heck is a swimsuit? I don't need one. Her response was so shocking I couldn't hide my confusion. What the heck is a swimsuit? I don't need one, she said. So she meant to swim totally naked? No. No way, that couldn't be it. Most likely, she meant to swim in her underwear. I pictured her clad in nothing but her underwear, water pouring over her. The damp fabric would cling to her body, and through the sheer material, I would be able to see the color of her skin, as well as the slight protrusions on her chest. Why didn't I ever
God
join them? I
damn
know
it, Rudy!
I'm trying to
I
go.
had to sneak that in. I'm sorry.
I
Just,
know, but
ugh.
it's okay. Your interjection was not unwarranted, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Why didn't I ever join them back when she went to play in the water back in Fatoa? Oh yeah, because I was busy. Even on my days off, I was preoccupied with something. Still, I should have gotten with her or gone with her just one time at least. No, now wasn't the time to think about that. I needed to focus on the city right before me. Live in the now. That's right. Live in the now. Woohoo! The ocean. Now, or no, you shouldn't swim in this ocean. A voice cut in from behind like a bucket of ice cold water. When I looked back, Reger was sitting there with his bald head and a scar stretched across his face, like a yakuza. His full name was Regerd Sperdia. He was a demon, one who loved children and had taken upon himself to escort us from the very beginning. When we were so lost we didn't know up from down, or when we were so lost we didn't know up from down. Now that he was bald, it was impossible to tell that he had the infamous emerald green hair of the spared race. In this world, demons with emerald green hair were regarded as a symbol of fear. Regerd had cut his hair off for our sake. Restoring honor to the name of his people was just one way I could repay my debt to him. There's a lot of monsters in there. A red jewel embedded in Regerd's forehead provided him with a sixth sense. It acted as a radar that could detect the presence of every living creature within several hundred meters of its bearer. With such a convenient ability, it was easy to think we could swiftly dispatch all those creatures in the ocean. But maybe it wasn't as all powerful as I thought. Maybe those murky depths were impenetrable. Nah, even so, we should be able to swim for a little bit, right? Swimming in the harbor might be too dangerous, but I could at least use earth magic on a nearby beach to make our own little pool. No, there was still a chance it could be dangerous. There were beasts out there with powers of their own. Some of them might be able to jump over my barrier. It might be a sexy encounter if it were an octopus, but if it were a shark, we'd be in a real life reenactment of Jaws. There was little choice. Probably best to give up on the idea of swimming in the ocean. There really was nothing else we could do. There'll be no sea bathing this time. Let's go find our inn and then hit up the Adventurers Guild. Okay. Eris looked dejected. Hmm. I still was very much interested in seeing how toned her body was. We hadn't had much opportunity to check out each other's growth in the last year. It was difficult to gauge anything through her clothes, but maybe if we were out in the open beach, I could see a little bit more. Yeah, that's right. We should do that. Take some water. Fucking, fucking Rudius.
Oh, we gotta just check up on each other once in a while. Make sure our growth is healthy.
Gross.
That's your reason.
We're gonna go right past that.
Yeah,
It's fine.
no, it's fine. I
It's
love
not
like
fine,
interjecting.
but
It's more fun to make. It's more fun to quit to judge him for it.
I mean, it's true. He doesn't actually become a character until like 3/4 of the series,
Yeah,
or three
yeah,
quarters of season
yeah.
one. Anyway,
Rudy, yeah.
mm,
It's more Rudy or not Rudy, Regerd and Eris until they split up.
Yep.
spoilers. But anyway,
You
it's
were
okay. I know. It's okay. They know.
all right.
Even if we can't go in the water, even if we can't go in the water, we could at least play on the beach, right? The beach? There's something called sand by the ocean. At the water's edge, that sand stretches out pretty far, I explained. And what part of that is supposed to be fun? Arist asked. On the beach, you can squirt water on yourself, and Rudy, you got that weird look on your face again. Ugh. Apparently, my expressions change too easily with my emotions. As I tried to clean the lecherous look off my face, Eris turned her eyes to the ocean and smiled. But it sounds interesting. Let's do that afterward. She happily kicked off and soared through the air, returning to the lizard. It was an incredible leap. Just the sound of her takeoff made me jump. It was like a low thumping noise. She had really toned her legs and lower body. Right now, that really complimented her build, but I imagined her becoming even more brawny and muscular in the future. And that worried me a little.
I mean, it's all things considered, it's
Amazing.
probably the best. Could you imagine Eris splashing him and probably like raining him out to sea?
Yeah.
There
Once we
definitely would be a
decided-
moment of him washing up on the shore, just ding, and he's like covered in seaweed,
Good.
dead,
As he deserves. Maybe not dead, but as he deserves.
looking like
Wha-
he's dead.
Yeah. Once we decided on our inn and boarded our lizard, we headed straight for the Adventurers Guild. A diverse crowd of adventurers clamored around the Windport Adventurers Guild. It wasn't an unfamiliar sight, but it seemed there was a considerable number of humans present this time. Once I crossed over to the Millis continent, their numbers would surely increase exponentially. There was an uncertain look on Reedger's face as I went to check out the bulletin board, as I always did. I thought we were going to cross the sea immediately. I'm just looking. I heard that you can make a better income on the Millis continent anyway. You can make a better income on the Millis continent because the currency was different. The Millis continent currency was broken up into 6 types: the king dollar, the general dollar, gold coins, silver coins, large copper coins, and copper coins. Comparing this to the demon continent's cheapest currency, which was the stone coin, one king dollar or king's dollar equals 50,000 stone coins. One general's dollar equals 10,000 stone coins. One gold coin is equal to 5,000 stone coins. One silver coin is equal to 100 or 1,000 stone coins. One large copper coin is equal to 100 stone coins, and one small copper coin is equal to 10 stone coins. A B ranked mission in the Demon Continent netted you about 5 to 10 scrap iron coins. That converted into 150 to 200 stone coins. If Millis' continent's B ranked missions were worth, let's assume, 5 large copper coins, that would be 1,500 stone coins. That was 10 times as much. We were better off making money on the Millis continent. That said, if we had time to kill before our ship was ready, then we would probably take one of the jobs here. Generally, that meant B ranked missions. Not only were A ranked and S ranked missions dangerous, most of them took more than a week to complete. If we wanted a consistent daily income, then B ranked jobs were our best option. It was also why I had no plan to raise our party to S rank, because it would mean we could no longer accept B ranked missions. In fact, as an A ranked party, you could undertake S ranked missions anyway, so I initially questioned the need for having an S rank in the party ranking system at all. When I asked one of the guild personnel about it, they told me there were special benefits if you rose to S rank. I didn't pry any further, but I guess it meant getting bigger discounts for lodging, being allotted better quality guild jobs, or the assurance that they would turn a blind eye to some of the party's illegal behavior. Something along those lines. Those who benefited the most from those perks were primarily the adventurers who went dungeon diving into labyrinths. Our party had no such plans. It was dangerous and it took days to finish such a venture. Our missions were primarily B ranked, and we had no designs on moving on up to S rank anytime soon. Eris, of course, disagreed on that point. Discretion aside, we were adventurers primarily interested in earning money. So if going to the Millis continent was the fastest way to do that, boarding a ship immediately was in our best interest. By the way, where do the boats leave from? I asked. The harbor, of course. Yes, but where in the harbor? Asked someone. Regard said. Yes, sir. I moved to the counter. Standing behind it was a human woman. In fact, most personnel tended to be women, and for some reason they tended to be generously endowed, probably for aesthetic purposes. I'd like to go to the Millis continent, I explained. Do you know what I should do to get there? Please direct those questions to the checkpoint. Checkpoint? Once you board a boat, you'll be beyond our country's borders. In other words, the guild had no jurisdiction over international travel, so its personnel had no responsibility to guide me in those matters. In that case, it was time to head over or towards the checkpoint. Then, just as I was about to ask for a more in-depth explanation, "Hey, you!" a loud voice echoed throughout the room. When I looked back, Eris had punched some human male. It seemed our nuclear warhead was feeling particularly explosive today. Just who and where do you think you were touching? It was an accident. Who the hell would want to touch an ass like yours anyway? I don't care if it was an accident or not. Your apology isn't. Eris had grown quite proficient in the demon tongue. The better she got, the more frequently she got into fights. It clearly wasn't such a good thing that she knew what the other party was saying after all. What's this? A fight? Yeah, go on, get him. Come on, kid, don't let a kid kick your don't let a kid kick your ass. Fights between guild members were such a common daily occurrence that the guild didn't even bother getting involved. In fact, some of the personnel even took part by placing bets. Excuse me. I'll crush
I
you
got
under my
50
feet.
doubloons on the small one.
I mean, yeah, because she's got 50 coins on the friend of the protagonist.
Sure, is this really necessary? Is this really appropriate?
Oh, absolutely.
If he lose, the entire Earth would be destroyed. You were saying?
Absolutely.
1,000 zenny on Goku.
Yeah. Perfect. I'll crush you under my feet. I'm sorry. I admit defeat. Please let me go. Don't grab my leg. Stop. While I was distracted, Eris had thrown the man on the ground. Lately, she had become an expert in backing a person to a wall. She would snap without warning and decimate her opponent with incredible precision. The time I spent wondering what she could possibly be pissed about, she already had her foot pressed firmly into her opponent's weak spot. Those C-ranked adventurers were no match for her. Whenever her quarrels reached a certain point, Regis would always step in. Stop, he said. Lay off. I'm not going to stop. You already won, Regis said. Let it go. The same spectacle as always. I couldn't really stop her, mostly because my way of stopping her was throwing my arms around her from behind, whereupon my hands would move of their own accord, finding an appropriate location to fondle, and then it would be my life in danger. Someone shouted, "Bald guy and a ferocious red-headed girl. Could you guys be Dead End?" Silence fell across the hall, and then, Dead End? You mean that demon from the Spurred race? Idiot! That party name! Those fakes all the rumors have been about lately. Oh, I've heard rumors about the real thing too. Oh? I heard they're brutal, but he's not a bad guy at heart. So he's brutal, but he's nice. Come on, that's a contradiction. No, I meant not all of them are brutal. The guild fell into hushed murmurs. This was the first time we had experienced something like this. Apparently, our group had become quite famous. I guess we didn't have to spread Reader's good name here after all, huh? They're an A-rank party with just 3 people after all. Yeah, that's incredible. Real thing or not, that's gotta be them. Mad Dog Eris and Guard Dog Regent, right? The two of them had nicknames. Mad Dog and Guard Dog, huh? Wonder why they were both dogs. Also, what kind of dog did that make me then? I tried to picture this for a minute. Certainly not a fighting dog. I hadn't done anything grand enough to earn that title, and I wasn't gallant at all. If I had to give myself a nickname, it would probably be something like Butter Dog. You know, the kind that helped women get off. Huh? Well, I had been the group's leader for the last year, so maybe a more intellectual nickname would serve. Like Faithful Dog. Then that little midget over there must be Kennel Master Weegered. I heard Kennel Master is the nastiest one of all. Yeah, all he's done is awful things. What in the world? Not only was the nickname different than I imagined, they didn't remember my name. No, wait, it was true that I used Reader's name all the time, right? Still, whenever I did anything good, I would always proclaim, I'm a Weegered of Dead End, and don't you forget it. Meanwhile, every time I did something bad, I would cackle loudly and say, my name is Rudius. Blah! So they shouldn't have gotten the two mixed up, right? Hmm. After a whole year of laborious work, it was a bit of a shock to discover people remembered everyone's name but mine. Oh, it seemed I had a negative image attached to me, but at least people weren't using my real name. Besides, Kennel Master wasn't such a bad title. I'd love to put a collar on Eris and lead her around, but he's pretty small. Yeah, I bet he's pretty small down there too, since he's a kid and all. Hey, you start calling it small, he'll set his dogs loose on you. Yeah. Before I realized what was happening, they were all laughing at me over something completely unrelated. Too bad for them, though. I was still growing and coming along nicely at that. So, yes, it might be a little more than a bamboo shoot for now, but the day it would grow into a magnificent, robust tree wasn't far off. Forget that. If we kept getting laughed at like this, Eris would go back into demon rage mode, or so I thought. Instead, she kept stealing glances at me with her cheeks flushed bright red. Oh, how adorable. Eris, what's wrong? It's, it's nothing. If you're that interested, then why don't you take a look while I'm showering tonight? Don't worry, I'll explain everything to Reader. If you want, we can even get in together, of course. Hand, leg, body, or even tongue might slip in the process. Anyway, I'm not joking around. It was time for us to move on to the checkpoint. I'll leave here with every bit of dignity expected of a kennel master. Uh, Miss Eris, Mr. Reger Doria, let's be on our way. Why did you screw up my name like that? We departed with the attention of most of the guilds trained on 3 of us. We arrived at the checkpoint. The city was located in the Demon Continent, but the boat we wanted to board would take us to the holy country of Millis. If you were carrying any luggage, you would have to pay taxes, and entry into the country itself would cost money as well. This was either to prevent crime or simply an opportunity for profit. My curiosity aside, we would pay if we said we had to. How much would it cost for us? We have 2 humans and 1 demon in our party. 2 humans would be 5 steel iron coins. Which demon tribe? Spared. The checkpoint official jerked their gaze toward Regent with a start. When they realized he was bald, they let out a heavy sigh, like they were put upon by just addressing us. It'll be 200 green ore coins for this bird. 200? Now it was my turn to be the one in shock. What? Why is it so high? I'm sure you already know the answer. Of course I knew it. I'd traveled with Regent for the past year. How wouldn't I know? There was such contempt toward the spare tribe that all its members were groundlessly persecuted. Even so, this fee was too high. But why such an impossibly high sum? Don't ask me. Ask the person who decided on it. I pressed on. Well, why do you think it's so high? Well, to prevent terrorism, I sure. In case someone brings one along as a slave and then sets him loose on the Millis continent. At least that was his interpretation. In other words, they were treating the spirit as if they were a ticking time bomb. You guys, or you're those guys, dead end, right? The fake spurred. When you're bored, they'll check what subrace you are. Don't act tough and waste 200 green gold or green ore coins here, and they'll figure you out anyway. The officials' word of caution were a blessing in disguise. This meant we wouldn't be able to pretend Regerd was from the meager tribe because we'd be discovered anyway. If you lie about your tribe, you don't have to pay a fine, do you? Oh, sorry. If you lie about your tribe, you don't have to pay a fine, do you? Just the money you wasted by lying about it in the first place. In other words, as long as we paid the money like this, as he told us, or like he told us, we would be fine. The power of money was impressive indeed. The sun was already going down by the time we departed for the checkpoint. We decided to return to the inn and eat. We were provided with the port city's unique seafood cuisine. The main dish was the size of a fist, steamed in rice wine with a touch of garlic butter. It was delicious, easily the best thing I'd eaten since we arrived on the demon continent. This is so good, Eris said happily as she chewed, her cheeks stuffed with food. In the past year, she had entirely forgotten the Asura Kingdom's customary table manners. She cut her food with a knife in her right hand, then stabbed it and put it straight in her mouth. At least she wasn't shoveling it in with her fist, but there was nothing graceful or refined about it. Edna, her etiquette tutor, would surely be reduced to tears if she could see Eris now. This was also my responsibility. Eris, your table manners are awful. Who the hell's worried about your who the hell's worried about your manners? In comparison, Regerd's manners were much better, although they had no elegance to them either. He didn't use his knife at all, but used his fork both to cut the food and eat. He slid his fork through the fish as easily as if it were butter. The skills of an expert, no doubt. Well, I realize we're still in the midst of our meal, but let's start our strategy meeting. Rudius, talking during a meal is poor manners, Eris said, suddenly wearing the expression of a prim and proper lady on her face. We started our meeting once the meal was over and our bellies were full. It's going to cost 200 green ore for us to cross the sea, a ridiculous price. Sorry, it's because of me. Regerd's face clouded over. Even I never imagined it would cost this much. Frankly, I'd completely underestimated the fee. I thought that making a little coin along the way would let us cross the ocean easily. In reality, it was 5 silver coins for humans. Even other demon tribes would pay 1 or 2 green ore coins at most. Only the fees for the Spur tribe were abnormally high. Now, let's not say things like that, Pops. I'm not your father. I know, I said. It was a joke. That aside, 200 gold or 200 coins was no ordinary amount of money. Even if we prioritized taking on S-ranked and A-ranked jobs, it would take us years to save up that much. It seemed the Millis continent really didn't want any spurred crossing its borders. We're in a bind. We can't just leave Regerd behind. Leaving Regerd behind would be the quickest way to make the crossing. Two of us were fairly experienced adventurers by now, so we could continue our journey even without him. That said, I had no intention of doing that. Regerd was going to be with us until our journey was over. Our friendship was unbreakable and eternal, after all. Of course we won't leave him behind. Then what are we going to do? We have 3 options, I said, holding up the corresponding amount of fingers. There were always 3 options for everything. One was to move forward, one was to go back, and the other was to stay where we were. Amazing. There's 3 whole options? Arist asked. I laughed. Now, just hold on, I thought. I haven't thought through all of them yet. Let's see. The first option is a frontal attack. We stay here, earn money, and then travel to Millis continent by paying the fee. But if we do that, yes, it will take way too much time, I agreed. If we prioritize making money, we might be able to save the required sum within a year. However, there was no guarantee something wouldn't happen to it at some point, like us losing our coin purse. The second option, we go into the labyrinth and obtain a magic crystal or a magic item. This would be this would be a laborious task, but we might be able to get the money we need in a single mission. A magic crystal would net a high price. As for how much exactly, I couldn't say. But if we handed it over to the official at the checkpoint, he might even let us spurt through. A labyrinth? I like the sound of that. Let's do it. No. Regerd shot down that plan immediately. But why not? Regerd could easily detect living creatures with his sixth sense, but the traps within a labyrinth are probably a different matter. I really want to go, Eris said, pouting. It's an option, but one I'd rather not go with. We might be fine if we proceeded with caution, but since I was rather careless with my feet, we would definitely make a fatal misstep at some point. It seemed prudent to heed Regerd's words on this one. The third option, we'd find a smuggler in the city who can take us. A smuggler? What the heck is that? Where the country's borders are involved, you usually don't or have to pay taxes to carry things across. That's why we were told to pay a fee. If you're a merchant, you most likely have to pay taxes on your goods, right? I don't know. Do you? Yes, you do, I answered. Otherwise, there would be no point in charging a greater fee based on a person's race. And there are probably items that cost an insane amount in tax. So there should be someone here who does that job for a cheaper price, as well as handling illegal goods. Well, maybe there wasn't, but if there was, then we could surely have them take us across for a much lower price than 200 green ore coins. There was clearly something going on with the fee at the checkpoint. That official told us we wouldn't be punished even if we lied about Reedred's tribe. Anyway, I just learned the hard way that the easiest pass was the one riddled with traps. So while I included that as a potential option, I wanted to avoid doing anything unlawful if possible. For the moment, the three options that I had come up with were the straightforward approach of earning money and paying the fee, making a killing by dungeon diving in a labyrinth, or striking a deal with the smuggler. None of them were particularly good. All right, there was one more. I could sell my staff, Aqua Hartia. It had an enormous magic crystal and it was an Asura Kingdom masterwork. That would at least earn enough money for a member of the Spirit race to cross the ocean. Pros and cons aside, I didn't want to sell it if at all possible. It was a precious birthday gift from Eris, and I was making good use of it. Eris and Regard surely wouldn't agree to me letting go of it that so easily. Well, let me get a sip of water. That night, a divine message came to me. The man god told me, buy some food at a street stall and search the alleyways by yourself. Sounds like a real pain in the ass, but since I have no other options, I'll try to be optimistic and give it a shot. So you're doing it because you have no other choice? Nah, I just already know what's going to happen since you said the words food and back alleyway. Do you? Yeah, pretty cliche, right? Let me guess. I'm going to find some hungry kid that got lost, and she's going to have some weird guy trying to pick her up. How's that? You're exactly right. Incredible. Then that kid turns out to be the grandchild, the leader of the shipwright guild, or something like that. Save the surprise for tomorrow. What surprise? There hasn't been a single enjoyable surprise this entire time. Besides, dude, what the heck? It's been a whole year since you did this. I even thought I'd never have the chance to see your face again. You see, last time my advice didn't turn out so well for you, did it? So it was a bit hard for me to show myself again. Huh. So the man god has a little shame after all, I guess. But don't get the wrong idea, okay? That was my mistake last time. That said, what was the correct choice I should have made? Well, if you want to use the term correct, that's on you. The normal choice would have been to turn that lot into the guards, thereby solidifying your friendship with Regard. What? You're telling me the solution was that simple? That's right. I never dreamed you would make them your allies and earn the attention of those conniving small fries in the Adventurers Guild. What an entertaining watch it was for me. Yeah, and I didn't have the least bit of fun. But thanks to that, you managed to get this far in a year. So you're saying the ends justify the means? Results mean everything. I don't like that. You don't, eh? Well, that's up to you. Anyway, you seem to be in a foul mood, so I'll be off. Wait just a second. There's one thing I want to confirm, and that is, if I don't think too hard about the advice you give me, does that mean things will go well? It's more entertaining for me if you give it a lot of thought. Aha, so that's it. That's your game. Now I get it. Thanks for the tip. Next time it won't be so entertaining for you. I look forward to that too. Yeah, of course you do. My consciousness faded as those final words echoed in my mind. Chapter 2 Misconnections, the prequel.
I'm
The next
surprised
day
you
I
never
went out.
asked him, the man god, like, hey, do you know what tomorrow's like winning lottery number or like the ticket is? You know, you can
If this
spot
world
me,
has a
man.
lottery, it only takes one win, honestly.
Yeah, I just need the one, all right, but I promise, just the one.
And then he spends it all. Like
And
a
there's like, all
bull.
right, man god, I know I said just the one.
I feel like, well, gambling probably exists in this world, but I feel like
Oh,
he would be a
100%.
very bad gambler in this world. Oh, okay, cool.
Hey.
Nice. So we have to get in there. Okay. Okay, so it's just changing the titles and all that stuff. Okay. Okay. Just for each week, right? Okay.
Mhm.
Mm. Okay. Mm. Okay, we'll figure it out.
It'll,
Chapter
it'll get
2.
addressed.
Hmm?
It'll get addressed.
Yeah, it will. Chapter 2, Misconnections, the prequel. The next day, I went out and loaded my arms with food from one of the stalls before wandering the back alleys a bit. The food was all roasted and skewered. There were some scallops similar to the ones we had in Japan, a fish similar to horse mackerel, and a few other sea creatures I couldn't identify. The store owner didn't clarify what his wares were, and the street stalls had a variety of them, so I decided to buy whatever was easiest to carry. I overthought things the last time the man guy gave me advice. Just as an amateur cook adds too much or too many ingredients to a dish, overthinking had landed me in a figurative shit pile. This time I was going to follow his advice exactly. I would brainlessly heed his instructions, buy the food he told me to, and then just as brainlessly navigate my way through whatever event was going to happen in the back alley. This was role playing. Whatever occurred from here on would be completely unplanned. I wouldn't overthink anything. I would act as simple mindedly as possible. That jerk liked entertainment. He was counting on me to overthink things again. As long as I didn't do that, he wouldn't be entertained. Those thoughts preoccupied me as I wandered aimlessly for several minutes before suddenly realizing something. Wait, this is exactly what he's expecting, isn't it? I've been deceived. He led me on with his impressive smooth talk, and now I was about to do exactly what he wanted me to do. When I realized that, it pissed me off. I was dancing right in the palm of his hand. Remember his original intention, I told myself. Remember how you felt the first time you met. Mangod wasn't someone I could trust. This is true. All right, then. This would be the last time I did as he told me. I would follow his advice and see how things turn out this time, but there was no way I would obey him next time. There was no way I was going to become his puppet and let him string me along. Period. I marched down the alleyway by myself, of course. Why did I have to be alone anyway? This was the key part of his advice this time. It must be something that Regent and Eris wouldn't approve of. No, don't overthink it, I told myself. If you want to think about something, then just think about how happy you'll be if it turns out to be something sexy. I told Regent and Eris that I would be off on my own for the day. It was dangerous to leave Eris to her own devices, so I entrusted Regent with her protection. Maybe the two of them were off to see the beach right now. Wait, isn't that a date? In my mind, I saw the two of them together on the beach just before their silhouettes disappeared behind the shade of a large rock. No, 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 there's no freaking way. Just calm down, okay? This is Eris and Regent we're talking about, right? This isn't some kind of sexual fantasy. It's nothing more than babysitting. Babysitting. Ah, but Regent was really strong after all, and Eris seemed to respect him a lot. Lately, she had been treating me like nothing more than a kennel master. No, no, what the hell are you panicking over? I berated myself. Deep breaths, everything is okay. Mr. Reger, you wouldn't steal her away from me, right? I have nothing to worry about, right? When I go back, the two of you won't have mysteriously gotten closer to one another, right? I trust you guys, okay? In my mind, I simulated a fight between Reger and myself. There was no way I could win in close range combat. If I wanted to deal with him, I needed to start somewhere outside of his range of detection. Then I would have to use water to finish him off. He got in the way of our seaside fun, after all. I would attack him with water as retribution for that. If I produced a massive amount of water, I could sweep him all the way into the ocean. The end. He could drift at sea until he drowned. Wait, don't misunderstand me. I did trust Rager. It was just that, well, you know that saying, love is a battlefield, right? It's also a song. It was quiet in the back alleys, even though the words back alley conjured the negative image of a bunch of unscrupulous characters gathering in one place. In reality, tender and innocent boys like me were liable to get kidnapped for walking around a place like this. In this world, kidnapping was one of the most common forms of crime for earning money. Of course, if anyone was stupid enough to kidnap me, I would crush their arms and legs and torture their address out of them. Then I would take everything of value in their homes before finally turning them into the authorities. Little girl, if you came with me, I'll give you enough food to fill you up. As in on cue, a voice came filtering through one of the alleyways. I quickly peeked in its direction and spotted a shady looking man pulling at the hand of a girl who was slumped against the side of a building. It was easy to deduce what was going on. The one who moves first wins, however, so I readied my staff. Then I created a modified stone cannon with the speed and power of a boxer's jab and aimed it at the man's neck or man's back. I had gotten good at limiting the power of my spells this year. Ouch! When I looked over his shoulder, I fired off another round. This time I strengthened it a bit. Grah! The spell rammed into his face with a violent thud, where it fragmented and crumbled to the ground. Man staggered and stumbled before collapsing. I was sure he wasn't dead. I had done a good job of restricting my power. Are you okay, young lady? I tried to look as cool and collected as possible as I reached out to the girl who had almost been kidnapped. Yeah. She was young and clad in a revealing black leather outfit, knee-high boots, hot pants, and a tube top. The pale skin of her clavicle, slender waist, belly button, and thighs were all exposed. On top of all that, she had horns like a goat and voluminous, wavy purple hair. With just one look, I knew she was a succubus, a young one at that. There was no question that she was younger than me. Perhaps this was the man god's way of rewarding me for my hard work. Maybe he had some sense in him after all. No, wait. This wasn't a succubus. As far as I knew, there were no succubi among the demon races. If I remember correctly, succubi inhabited the Begaric continent. Paul had had an unusually tense look on his face when he told me, "Our race has no chance against them." Even I would surely be powerless in the face of a succubus if I actually met one. Succubi were the natural enemy of the Grey Rat family. That aside, there were no monsters within the city. In other words, she was no succubus. She was just some demon kid in skimpy clothing. You, you there, or you, you there. What have you? She was trembling like a fawn. "Th- This man is. He's. She had a look of utter disbelief on her face. A look of, oh gosh, golly, mister, what have you done? I'm sorry. Did you know him? I asked, tilting my head. The look on that middle-aged man's face didn't give me the impression that he was acquainted with his kid. If I were to describe it, it was a look like the look of a man past his prime getting aroused by a little girl. Look at him, ruddy face contorted into a smile, even though he was unconscious. I had no doubt he'd take her home, provide a lavish meal, and put her in bed. But in return, he'd expect a long, hot night. Ugh, my belly aches from the hunger. This man was going to provide me with a meal. A noisy gurgling grumble punctuated her sentence, loud enough that it could have been the foreshadowing of an earthquake. When the noise stopped, the girl's knees gave out from beneath her and she crumpled. Are you okay? I knelt down and lifted her into my arms. I wasn't about to overlook the perfect opportunity to touch her. She wasn't getting away. Don't get me wrong, though. The only reason I was there was to follow the man god's advice and save her. I wasn't of the same ilk as that pervert from a moment ago. Uh, er, it's been 300 years since I revived. Passing out in a place like this is inconceivable. Laplace can never know about this. It felt like I'd stumbled onto the set of some mini drama. Was this getup actually a cosplay or something? Anyway, eat this and get some of your strength back. I crammed 3 of the fried skewers I brought into her mouth. Munch, munch. The moment they entered her mouth, her eyes snapped open and stayed that way as she devoured the meat in seconds. Then she snatched the other skewers from me. I had a total of 12, but in a snap of her fingers, she had already eaten 10 of them. Ugh, whoa, delicious! The first thing I've had in a year, and it's so tasty. The girl seemed to have recovered. She leaped into the air from her prone position, making a single rotation before landing on her feet. She was unexpectedly fit. A year? I don't know what your circumstances are, but that's a bit extreme. It wasn't as if she were a giant ice pod that could live years without eating and not starve to death. Hmm. Well, it's not like I counted the rise and fall of the sun, but with how empty my stomach was, it should be a close estimate. Uh-huh. So you probably hadn't eaten in 2 days then. Regardless, you say to me, you, I can surely last another year on this. The young girl finally met my gaze. She had mismatched eyes, one purple and one green. This had to be another aspect of her cosplay. No color context didn't exist in this world. So maybe that was her natural eye color. Oh, her right eye spun around and turned blue. Gross. What? Whoa. What's wrong with you? You're horrifically disgusting. What is this? What is it? I've never seen this before. She shouted with far too much excitement as she looked at my face. Uh, yeah, needless to say, that was a shock. It had been a long time since I last had someone look me in the face and call me disgusting. Then again, I just thought the same thing when I looked at her, so at least we were even. Could that be it? You were a twin in the womb, but the other one died when you were born. Is that it? Huh? What the heck was she talking about? No, I don't think anything like that happened. You're sure? Yeah, but your mana pool, it's larger than Laplace's. My what was bigger than who? I had no idea what she was talking about. With her weird way of speaking to her freaky eyes, this kid was quite the disappointment. That aside, state your name. Rudy Scrayrat. Very good. I am Kishirika Kishirisu. People call me the Great Emperor of the Demon World. She proudly thrust her hips forward with her hands perched on her waist. Her thighs appeared in front of me so suddenly that I stuck my tongue out without thinking. Ah! What are you doing? That's filthy. She turned her toes inward and rigorously scrubbed her thighs together while I licked her, before glaring at me. So now I understood. The Demon World's Great Emperor Kishirika Kishirisu was a name I'd heard before. The immortal demon emperor who had led the demons in the Great Human Demon War, only to meet a crushing defeat. Was she the real thing? I'd come here on the man god's advice after all. There was a possibility that she really was who she claimed. Still, how could the real thing be here in a back alley of a city on the edge of the demon continent on the brink of death from starvation? It just didn't seem likely, no matter how you spun it. Ah, that's probably it, I realized. Children on this continent loved to pretend they were one of the great heroes of the past. The most popular of these figures was the demon god Laplace. That was nauseating for me since I knew the truth about him, but he was popular. Even though he lost the war, he successfully subjugated all the tribes on the continent and gave the people a fixed place to call home, thereby bringing them peace. He was regarded as one of the greatest demons in history. Children often played out his stories, particularly the episode where he fought with an immortal dragon or demon king. That was the one I had seen numerous times on the way to Windport. I suppose that the great emperor of the demon world, Kishirika, was another one of the great people in history, but I'd never seen any children pretending to be her before. This girl had to be one passionate fan of the great emperor, and she had no friends to play with, which was why she was here by herself in a back alleyway like this. That was the most logical way to interpret the situation. It was lonely being all by herself. I had no other choice then. I had to play along. Yes. How rude of me, your majesty. I responded to her introduction with great exaggeration and took a knee as if I were one of her retainers. Oh, 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 yes. Very, very good. This is the reaction I've been waiting for. Young people these days don't have any manners anymore, you see. She nodded her head in satisfaction. Yeah, knew it. She really wanted someone to play this out with. What a fool I was for not realizing you had revived. Please forgive me for my poor manners. Very well. You saved my life. I will grant whatever wish you have. Just one. Her life? All I did was give her some food because she was hungry. Uh, um, how about an abundance of wealth? Fool, you can see I'm penniless. But she said I could ask for anything. No, wait. Maybe that was part of the act. Maybe there was some episode where someone asked the great emperor for money only for her to respond that she had none. Uh, all right then. Please give me half of the world. What? Half of the world, you say? That's enormous. Still, that's half-hearted. Why only half? Oh, that's because I don't need the men. Oh crap, accidentally let my real feelings slip there. That wasn't something she was supposed to hear. I see. So that's it. You may be young, but you're a lecherous one. Still, my apologies. Even I haven't managed to take the world for myself. True enough, Kishirika had lost every battle for the demons that she led. All right, then, I'm fine. Or, all right, then, I'm fine with your body. Please pay me with your body. Uh, my body? For you to be that full of lust at your age gives me concern for your future. Haha, of course, I'm just as I tried to tell her that I was joking, she reached for her hot pants. Ah, well, I guess there's no help for it. This is my first time since I revived, so be gentle with me, all right? Kishirika's cheeks burned bright as she slowly started to pull her pants down. Seriously? I was just saying that as a joke. No, wait. Now it was too late to tell her that I'd only been joking. I would have just observe as she revealed herself, and then afterward refuse by claiming that I was unworthy of her majesty. Uh, no, I mustn't do this. Before I could do that, Kishirika stopped herself. I already have a fiancé. So sorry, but I can't do this. The skin she had exposed vanished as she pulled her pants up. Felt like she had been toying with my poor, pure heart. Anyway, so it was a no to money, no to the world, and no to her body. All right, then what can you do? I asked. Fool! I am Kishirika, great emperor of the demon world. It's obvious what I can bestow upon you. Demon eyes. So that was it. Well, I wasn't well versed in the heroic mythology of this world, come to think of it though. Didn't Ghislaine also have a demon eye? By demon eyes, do you mean eyes that can see a person's lifetime? A line that, if cut, will kill the person with absolute certainty? How horrific! What in the world is that power? I don't have anything as terrifying as that. So that wasn't it. The only other sort of demon eye I knew of was the kind that turned the person you looked into or at to stone. I figured eyes which shot beams or lasers couldn't be considered demon eyes. For you to covet such a dangerous power, tell me, do you hold that deep grudge or that deep a grudge against someone? She asked. No, not really. Nothing good comes of revenge. I've been killed twice, but I don't begrudge those who killed me now. A grudge is a chain that weighs you down. That's what started the great human demon war. I was getting lectured by a little girl. Oh, well, it's not like I had plans to target some vampire somewhere and slice them up. To be honest, I don't really know much about demon eyes, I said. What types are there? As I've only recently revived myself, I don't possess any that significant. But there are eyes of magical power, eyes of identification, eyes of x ray vision, eyes of distant sight, eyes of foresight, and eyes of absorption. Things like that. Those were just names. Can you explain to me what each of them do? Hmm. You mean you don't know? Honestly, young people these days don't spend enough time on their studies. Despite these complaints, she proceeded to explain. First, you have eyes of magical power. These you can see mana directly. These are the most common. 1 in 10,000 people possess one of these. Ah, the most popular then, huh? Eyes of identification. You can use these to identify objects and their details. However, they can only give you information that I know. Anything I don't know will come up as unknown. I get it. Kind of like a dictionary then. She continued. Eyes of X-ray vision. These eyes can see straight through objects like walls. You can't see through living creatures or places with high mana concentration. But you could have your fill of seeing every girl naked. Perfect for a pervert like you, know. As long as I'm not just seeing bones, I deadpan. Eyes of distant sight. These can see things a great distance away. It's difficult to focus on things, though. While you can see things far away, you can't actually do anything to influence what's happening. So I wouldn't recommend these for you. No point in looking if you can't touch, I agreed. Eyes of foresight. These can see things that will happen moments in advance. These are also difficult to focus, but these I would recommend. Business is like that, like to stay one step ahead would love something like that. Eyes of absorption. These eyes can consume mana. This includes mana that you use, so I don't really recommend them. Rinse and repeat, huh? Kishirika was very knowledgeable. She must have learned all this from somewhere. So perhaps her parents were well educated, or maybe there was a book about all the types of demon eyes out there. All right, then I'll take 2 so both my eyes can be demon eyes. You want 2 right from the start, she asked. You're greedier than you look. Come on, I'll give you another meat skewer. I held out my last 2 meat skewers and she took them with a wide grin. Yay! Yum, 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 yum. You know, I I don't mind giving you 2 demon eyes, but I don't recommend it. Why not? I asked. You won't want to use them constantly. Most people generally cover their demon eyes with an eye patch. If you have 2 demon eyes, you won't be able to see at all. Ah, now that you mention it, I know someone who uses an eye patch. My swordmaster Ghislaine wore one. I later found out it wasn't because she had lost an eye, but because she had a demon eye. Also, a person who lives several hundred years might be able to control 2 demon eyes at once, but a child like you would lose your mind trying. Lose my mind? So using them did have an impact on your brain? Scary. All right, then let's not do 2 after all. That's for the best. Well, which will it be? I do recommend the Foresight Eye. Demon eyes, huh? If I really were to obtain one, which would I rather have? I thought hard about each one of them, but they all had their uses. An eye for magical power seemed like a bit of a waste. Might come in handy, but then again, quite a few people seem to have them. If I was going to get one, I wanted one that felt more unique. I didn't really need an eye of identification. Not knowing what things are wasn't such a great inconvenience. Besides, anything the Great Demon Emperor didn't know would be listed as unknown anyway. I could imagine it being useless just when I really needed it. I didn't really need an eye of X-ray vision either. It would take a while until I could properly control it, and I imagined having to see Reader naked all the time. The eye of distant sight might be beneficial, but at that moment I had no desire for one. I could already guess what Regent and Eris were up to without an eye of distant sight, but if I had one, I would probably see Eris threatening someone while Regent tried to stop her. As for the eye of foresight, I could certainly see why she recommended it. It was true that I couldn't beat Eris or Regent in close combat right now. The creatures and people of this world were quick after all. Being able to see in the future even for a few seconds would be a huge advantage to me. The eye of absorption was completely out of the question. That would just kill the advantages I had as a magician. Still, it was good to know that such a demon eye existed. Otherwise, I would have panicked if I came up against someone who could render my magic completely ineffective. Oh well, it didn't matter which one I picked. We were just playing around anyway. Alright, give me the one you recommended. The Eye of Foresight. Are you sure? Most people ignore my recommendations and choose something else for themselves, saying, what's so great about being able to see a few moments in the future? If you can see even 1 second in the future, you can control the world. Even so, the swordsmen in this world were quick. I might not be able to beat them even with the power of foresight. There was the longsword of light after all. Not the eye of X-ray vision. No to seeing all the naked girls you want? This little girl sure didn't get it, did she? Sure, I could see the naked body of any beautiful girl or woman who walked by on the street and it would probably turn me on. But that was it. I get fed up with that quickly. The process of imagining them undressing was what I enjoyed anyway. You couldn't enjoy the way a shirt outlined those stiff protrusions on a girl's breasts if she wasn't wearing any clothes to begin with, right? I see, I see. All right, bring your face over here. All right, here goes. Squelch. She jammed her finger into my right eye. A sharp jolt of pain shot through me. Ah! Instinctively, I tried to retreat, but Kishirika caught hold of me. I couldn't move. She was stronger than I expected. It hurts, it hurts, it hurts! My brain screamed. What the hell are you trying to do? Or what are you doing, you brat? Oh, shut up. You're a man, aren't you? Bear with the pain a little. She ground her fingers around in my eye socket as if she were tinkering with it, then pulled them out with a pop or a I was left completely blind in that eye. The iris of the eye of foresight is a bit different than your normal color, but people won't be able to tell the difference from afar. You absolute moron! There's a difference between what is and what is not okay to do when you're playing around. I am the demon world's great emperor. I wouldn't play around about giving you a demon eye. Damn it! My eye, my eye is. Wait, what? I paused in confusion. I could see. Everything looked like it was doubled, though? What the heck was going on? It's nauseating. The demon eye. Depending on how you supply mana to it, you should be able to make it as thin as possible. Well, do your best to learn how to use it. Huh? What? What are you talking about? I'm saying it all depends on you. Kishirika seemed pleased with herself. No matter how confused her words left me, I saw an after image of her nodding, and within that after image was a thick shadow. What was it? Very good. So you can see it after all. Well then, I'll be on my way. I need to search out Borigati. Much appreciation for the food. Once she started or finished talking, she leaped through the air and landed on the roof above with a thud. Fare thee well, Rudius. There was a Doppler effect as she left, the sound of her high laughter gradually fading. I
Who did
listened
she
to it
say
in
she
blank
needed to go
amazement.
looking for?
Borigoti.
No, Batty Gaddy.
Batty Gaddy?
Yeah,
That's how they say it?
Batty
Okay.
Gaddy, I think. Batty Gaddy, I think.
you've
is how
met
you
him.
Pronounce it.
You've met
That's
him.
right. He's the forearm guy. Batty
Mhm.
Gaddy.
Batty Gaddy,
Yeah.
I think it is. I'm
Batty
not
Gaddy.
sure.
Batty Gaddy. Yeah.
He is.
I don't think it's fine.
He's the guy who shows up at the academy.
He's also her
I want you to hit
fiance.
me one time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. Wait.
She
She was
hit
the
me
real thing?
one time, as hard as you can.
Punch. Actually, no, he was okay.
Yeah, no,
was
he
fine.
made it through. It was definitely of a now hold on. Now
Yeah.
you may be misinterpreting me. Not 50%, not 25, not some arbitrary number. Hit me as hard as you can. But more like Topo.
You, me, hard as you can. Technically, Rudius fulfilled those conditions. If Batty Gaddy wasn't the immortal king Batty Gaddy, that would have killed him.
Probably.
Like, Rudius blew his top off, my dude. Like,
And then he
he
pulled a
was-
cell. It's like, all right, I'm back.
Yep.
Since I know you have trouble listening, you, me, hard as you can. All right.
Are we clear?
Good. I mean, that was basically how that exchange went.
If there ever was a Mushoku Tensei in season 2 in a nutshell, it would be that scene recreated with the audio.
Yeah. Yep. But with his voice, so like.
Yeah,
however
it
they
would
wanted to
literally be
cast
the
his
cell
voice.
audio, and then it'd just be Rudy being like Crystal.
I can see it. And that was how I obtained the Eye of Foresight. Chapter 3: Misconnections, the sequel. A demon eye. Most people would be shocked at receiving such a thing so suddenly. By chance, she happened to be in the alley, and by chance, she happened to give it to me. It was such a twist of fate, and my mind had not caught up with what was happening. That aside, I had done just as the man God instructed me, so that meant things went exactly the way he wanted them to. The thought made me want to tear the eye out and crush it underfoot. I didn't, though, because that seemed too painful and scary. At any rate, I started back to the inn and cursed my own naivety, or naivete. The people walking around town were all doubled. Which was the future and which was the past? Even if I could tell, people's movements were unpredictable. I kept misjudging them with my eyes and bumping into people. Watch where you're going, or watch where you're walking. By the man's appearance, I guess he was a small-time thug. He had a voluminous beard on his chin and a scar on his face. I didn't get the impression he was an adventurer, but rather one of the many pests that infested the city. Yes, I apologize. My eyes aren't very good. Your eyes aren't very good, huh? Then walk on the side of the road. You know most of the folks around this area that can't see or hear well look apologetic when they're walking around. He was just trying to pick a fight. His threats were intimidating, but I could tell he wasn't that angry, just a bit irritated. I'll be careful from now on, I said. That's right. Watch it. I didn't want things to escalate further, so I held my tongue and looked the other way. The thug hawked and spat at the ground before walking off. Then he paused. Ah, That's right, he said. I just have one question for you. You seen a drunk moron walking around here? He never came back yesterday. I saw it just as he looked back at me, a flower pot shattering right on top of his head. What happened next was instantaneous. I channeled mana with my right hand and released wind magic that blew him out of the way. Gah! He somersaulted across the ground, then leapt to his feet in a defensive stance. He whipped out his sword and aimed its tip at me. Bastard! What the hell are... Then was when the flower pot crashed against the ground, shattering. Both of us followed its trajectory upward. The middle-aged woman gazed down at us with a dumbfounded look on her face. Uh, I'm so sorry. Are you all right down there? Yes, we're fine. She ducked back into the house after I answered. The thug's gaze flitted between me and the spot where the pot had fallen and his current position. He gulped. Um, about that drunk guy. He's passed out in one of the alleyways. Probably had a fight with someone. Anyway, I'll be off. Yeah, sorry. About that drunk guy. He's passed out in one of the alleyways. Probably had a fight with someone. Anyway, I'll be off. I spoke as quickly as possible before turning my back on the scene. I didn't want to be further involved with that thug. This eye seemed to have its uses after all. Though it would be a nuisance if it caused problems like this constantly. I decided to work on mastering it quickly. I returned to the inn. When I told Eris and Reger that I had met the Demon World's great emperor, they were both flabbergasted. The Demon World's great emperor? I didn't think she would revive. Reger had a rare look of surprise on his face. And I never dreamed I would get some. Oh, sorry. And I never dreamed I would get something like a demon eye so suddenly. Bestowing demon eyes is a power only the great emperor possesses, he explained. The great emperor of the demon world, Kishirika Kishirisu, was also known as the demon emperor of resurrection. Another name for her was a demon emperor of demon eyes. Apparently, she wasn't that skilled in combat, but with 12 demon eyes in her possession, there were many things she could see that most could not. Her most fearsome power was her ability to turn another person's eye into a demon eye. It was through that power that she bestowed demon eyes on all of her followers, giving her the power to rule over all the demon tribes. There were even those who became her followers just so they could obtain more power. I wonder what she was doing in the city, I said. Who knows? I have no idea what goes through the minds of demon kings or demon emperors, Richard said with a shrug. True, I thought. You didn't even know the true intentions of the demon god you served for so many years, after all. Not that I would say as much to him, knowing it would only depress him. Eris, on the other hand, was starry eyed over the title Demon World's Great Emperor. That's incredible! I want to meet her too! You do? Eris and Kishirika. Just what kind of conversation will the two of them have if they were to meet? Even I was a little curious. As unlikely as it seemed, they might find common ground. I wonder if she's still in the city. I'm not sure, I said. Who knows? Maybe if I went back through the alleys tomorrow, I'd find her passed out from hunger again. It felt like a highly plausible running gag given her character. But still quite unlikely. It seems she was searching for someone, so she'd probably moved on already. It was as if she were a magical girl being led on by the laws of cycles or something. I'm sure she's probably left the city by now. Really? That's too bad, Eris said. She would probably go check out the back alleys tomorrow anyway, despite what I said. Anyway, with that said, I'm going to hole up in the inn. You two are free to go off on your own. They each gave a nod. It took a week to learn how to use the demon eye. Put simply, it wasn't that difficult. You can control the eye through mana. It was very similar to the way I used magic without chanting, which I had done many times before. Through mana, you could control what you saw. I was confused until I realized there were two types of focus. Then things came together quickly. One of the focus types controlled opacity, like changing the shade of a dialogue windows in an erotic game. Okay. At first, it was turned to max, so everything appeared fully doubled. I made the opacity as low as possible. By channeling mana into the inner part of my eye, I could weaken my foresight ability enough to see the present. Glimpses of the future were beneficial, though, so I adjusted the opacity to the exact point where it wasn't distracting, but still visible. Then I tried to maintain it like that. If I lost focus for even a second, the opacity would change. It took 3 days before I could keep it consistent. The next one was duration, or rather, the latency. I could change how far into the future I could see by channeling mana into the forefront of my eye. The furthest forward I could normally see was only 1 second. But with the use of mana, I could see 2 or more seconds in the future. Things blurred into twos or threes, like the branch of a tree splitting off and representing different possibilities. I could see up to 3 or 4 seconds with more mana. But if I tried to see up to 5 seconds in advance, the image split and blurred so much that it gave me a headache. That was representative of just how many ways the future could change. Also, the further you try to see into the future, the more it taxed your brain, apparently. Kishirika even said that having two demon eyes would cripple you. Perhaps it was the influence of all her demon eyes that made her seem like such an airhead. Regardless, I knew I could safely see 1 second in the future. It took me 3 days to master this, then an extra day to learn how to control both factors at once. In total, it took 7 days to learn the basic of using my Eye of Foresight. While I was busy channeling mana into my eye and commanding it, do my bidding, Eye of Foresight. Eris and Regard went somewhere together every day. When they returned, Eris was always bathed in sweat while Regard looked as composed as ever, only perspiring slightly more than usual. The two of them were doing something to work up that sweat, and every single day that at that. Just for the sake of reference, I'd like to ask, what are you two doing? Eris was wringing out a rag drenched in sweat when I asked. She answered, Heh, that's a secret. She looked to be truly enjoying herself. So she was doing something in secret that she couldn't tell me? Oh, I get it. A little afternoon delight, huh? Guess my only hope for action was to drown myself in the scent of that sweat soaked rag she was holding. Don't get the wrong idea. I wasn't particularly worried about it. They were probably just going out and training. While her attitude might have suggested otherwise, Eris actually was the type to work hard in secret. Back when we were in the Fatoa region, she did the same thing, frequently training with Ghislaine on her days off. Back then, whenever I asked her what she was doing, she would get that same overconfident smirk on her face and say, It's a secret. So I was sure it had to be training this time, too. That night, I had a dream about a 34-year-old shut in prodding me in the cheek as he whispered in my ear, From now on, your nickname will be Pathetic Loser. I figured it had to be the man god's handiwork. That bastard was really good for absolutely nothing. A week later, I informed Eris and Regard about my ability to control the Eye of Foresight. When I did, Regard suggested, Then why don't you and Eris have a bout? Was it to test how usable this thing was in battle, or was it to show me the result of her special training? Accomplishing both at once would be a sweet deal, so I accepted. We relocated to the beach. Regard stood on the sidelines to observe while we took up positions opposite one another, swords in hands. Do you really think you can beat me now just because you got that demon eye? Eris was feeling particularly confident today. She must have learned some new technique or something this past week. I wanted to keep that cheeky grin on her face. Nope, it's fine if I lose. I just want to know how much I can see in the midst of battle with this eye. That's all. That was why I wasn't going to use magic today. I wanted to see the fruits of my own labor as well. I adjusted my eye to be able to see 1 second in the future and the fight began. Hmm, that sounds like just like something you would say. But I could see she was going to do even as she was still talking. She's going to suddenly swing her left fist at me. If I didn't have this eye, I wouldn't have been able to react in time. Eris was a natural when it came to launching preemptive strikes. Ha! Whoa! I was able to dodge her attack. I countered by clapping the side of her face. Then the next vision came. Eris won't even flinch. She'll start an onslaught of attacks instead, with a sword in her right hand. That was Eris's strong point. She could shrug off any number of attacks and launch right into an offensive. Her lower body was so strong that most attacks wouldn't send her reeling. In fact, the more damage she took, the more it charged her rage and the more aggressive her attacks became. Ta! Okay. I struck her forearm hard. Eris dropped her the sword. Previously, I would have considered the battle over at that point. Dropping your sword meant you lost, or at least it did when I was training under Ghislaine. However, I could see with my eye that this wasn't over yet. Eris is already falling back into her second line of attack. In other words, this was just one of her feints. She dropped the sword to get me to lower my guard. She'll punch me right in the chin with her left fist. In other words, she purposely dropped the sword to lure me into a false sense of security, so she could launch into her usual style of hand-to-hand combat. Eris' special Boreas punch. What? What? Your legs are open. I hooked my foot around hers, knocking her off balance. Her fist swiped at empty air and she fell to the ground. Still, it seemed the battle wasn't over. She's going to catch herself with her hands, use the rebound and torque to turn, and latch onto my right leg. I stepped back and at the same time brought my knees down, pinning her so she couldn't move. Thanks to the way she contorted her body in a desperate attempt to bite me, Eris's body was all twisted. One arm was squashed beneath her while one of her legs was bent towards her bottom. I wondered what she would do next, while I could foresee was more struggling. That's enough, our referee called out. Eris drooped as if their energy had been drained out of her. Did I win? Did I actually win? This was the first time I ever have excuse me, this was the first time I've ever beaten Eris in close combat without magic. I failed, huh? Eris had a surprisingly tranquil look on her face when she gazed up at me. It got off her. She stood up slowly and dusted the dirt off her outfit. She's going to punch me. Eris's expression soured when I stopped her fist with my hand. I'm going home, she declared loudly. Her shoulders trembled as she left for the inn. Did I really piss her off, I wonder? No, that wasn't it. I probably just made her lose some confidence. She'd always had an easy time beating me so far. That had suddenly gotten stronger. If I were in her place, I would probably felt jealous too. Eris is still a child, Regard said as he watched her go. That's normal for her age, I responded before looking back at him. He looked me in the eye and nodded. Smooth work. Anyone who had a demon eye could do that. I had gotten somewhat fitter, but there was a dozen of other people in this world with similar physical ability. Anyone who had a demon eye should be able to do the same. A demon eye isn't something a person can immediately master when they get it. Oh, really? There was a spirit in my battle troop who had a demon eye. He kept an eye patch over it constantly and never managed to control it, not even until the day he died. You're an odd one for being able to control it after just 1 week. Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I got what he meant. Well, I did really work hard on controlling my mana flow, and I did master using it in just a week. So I was the only one able to control this quickly, huh? I see, I see. Perhaps I could even beat you, Master Regard, if you use magic, he agreed. In close combat, want to give it a try. I decided to take him up on that offer. To be frank, I was getting ahead of myself. Yes, please. Regard put his lance aside and took a stance empty handed. In other words, he didn't need a signature weapon against a run like me. You can use magic if you like, he said. No, if we're going to do this, we'll do it with our bare hands. Before I had even finished, a vision appeared right before me. Regard's palm is going to come straight at me. I could see it. I could see what he was going to do, and I could react to it. Oh, I reached my hand out to stop him. He's going to grab my hand. The moment I saw the vision, I instinctively pulled my hand back. The next moment, the vision blurred. He's going to catch me in the face with his fist. Now there were two visions, in other words, two separate potential futures. One in which he grabbed my arm, and another in which he slammed his fist in my face. What's going on? Doubt stirred within me. My vision wasn't supposed to blur within a 1 second window. Whoa! I bent my body back, narrowly evading his attack. Patriot's fist is going to come at my face. I could see it. I could see it clearly. But my body was already contorted from dodging his last attack. Even I could see what he would do next, I wasn't able to move in time to avoid it. What? His fist caught me right in the middle of my face. My head struck the sandy beach as I tumbled to the ground, as I was left lying there face down. I reached a hand up to check for injuries. I was okay, right? I hope he didn't completely mangle my beautiful face. I didn't have a pushed in pug face now, did I? Healed? I could sense it was over the moment he asked that. Yes, I admit defeat. I thought I could win when I saw the first vision, but it seemed things weren't so simple. But now you understand, right? I took the hand he held out to me and stood up. No, I don't. The future I saw was just blurred. How did you do that? I have no idea what you saw, but I decided that if you tried to defend yourself or to defend with your hand, I would grab it. And if you didn't, then I would punch. That was all that went through my head. In other words, as long as he could guess what I was going to do next, he could react to it. There was such a gap in our skill levels that my ability to see 1 second in the future ultimately meant nothing. Similar to Shogi, you could say. Even if a novice could see one move ahead, there was still no way they could beat a master. The inhabitants of this world were, to an unusual degree, highly skilled. There are probably many others out there who could fight like Regard. More impor- or more importantly, more importantly, I fought someone with the same demon eye before. Ever since then, I've fought with the assumption that everyone has the same ability. You and I have different levels of experience. That's true. So I used his experience to combat the Eye of Foresight. Perhaps the sword styles of this world also had ways to counter the power of a demon eye. For instance, the sword god's style's long sword of light. I got the feeling that even if you could see it, you wouldn't be able to dodge it. It looks like I got a little ahead of myself. It seemed like the weaknesses of the demon eye were already long established, such as finding a way to block the possessor's vision, using a shield, attacking from behind, or even fighting in the dark. All that aside, this eye still had its appeal. Excuse me. I beat Eris after all. Just thinking about the ways in which I could use it from now on made my heart pound. I predicted everything Eris would do, a complete 180 from how things were from before. In other words, with practice, I might be able to even predict Regard's movements. That was when the wise old sage appeared with a poof inside my head, with his bald head and sunglasses. Now you don't have to get smacked around all the time to see how far you come, he said. All right then. Thank you, breast loving, wise old sage. Thinking about all the ways I could use this eye really did make my heart sore. When I returned to the inn, wearing a dreamy look on my face, I found Eris perched on the bed with her knees hugged to her chest. All right, I'd forgotten about her. She was depressed. Meanwhile, my inner wise old sage had hopped on his turtle and disappeared somewhere else. Um, Eris, what do you want? After our battle, Rager told me what the two of them had been doing this past week. Apparently, it was a special training, after all. Not the perverted kind, of course, to strengthen herself. Eris had dedicated every day or every single day to sword practice. As a result, she had successfully managed to beat him one time. She'd beaten Regard once. That was extraordinary. I'd probably never managed that my entire life. Apparently, Eris got pretty cocky because of it. That's why Regard used me to deflate her ego. Seriously, what the hell? It was his own mistake, and yet that lolicon loving wannabe warrior made me clean up his mess. Still, it was effective. Her ego had swelled so much after claiming victory against an opponent she'd never beaten before, Regard, only to be punctured by losing to an opponent she had never defeated or who had never defeated her before, me. That said, I didn't think this was the right way of handling it. I knew what it was like to finally start thinking, hey, maybe I've got the hang of this, only to be proven otherwise. It left you feeling completely miserable, as if everything you'd done up until now was pointless. Sure, perhaps it helped cool her head. Maybe she wouldn't make big mistakes now, but Eris was probably in a period of rapid growth. I didn't think checking her ego was the right answer. Instead, it was better to let her ride that high so she could develop even faster. Then you could point out her shortcomings and correct them afterward. You really have gotten very strong, Eris. It's fine. I don't need you to comfort me. I knew I could beat you anyway. Still irritable, she stuck out her bottom lip in a pout. What could I say to her? I didn't have any good stock phrases for times like this. Richard hadn't come back to the room with me. It was his fault her ego got out of hand in the first place. So I wished he would do something about this, even though it was true that I was the one who actually burst her bubble. Then again, if I could comfort her properly, her affection meter would undoubtedly go up. She would fall head over heels for me. The two of us would hold each other cheek and cheek in a love dance, or cheek to cheek in a love dance. Regent must have assumed that that was what would happen, and that's why he left us alone. Don't lose all your confidence over this. I heard you managed to beat Regent once. That's amazing, right? I took a seat beside her as I spoke. When I did, Eris leaned her body against mine. The sweet scent of sweats filled my nostrils. It was a good smell, but I had to rein myself in. I needed to be a gentleman in this situation. It's cheating, Rudius. You got a demon eye for yourself while I had to work my butt off. I froze. My head instantly went numb. My inner wolf receded with its tail tucked firmly between its legs. There was nothing I could say in response. She was right. What was I getting so happy over? It was cheating. What I'd done was dishonest. The demon eye's power wasn't something I'd worked hard to attain. It just fell in my lap. All I did was buy food from some stand and water the back alleys. True, it had taken me a week to master its powers, but that was it. I hadn't struggled at all. What the hell was I doing using that power and acting all happy that I beat an Eris when she spent an entire week working hard, drenched in sweat? I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Eris went completely silent after that. She didn't move away from me, though. My heart would normally be pounding at her scent or the warmth of her body, but this time it didn't. Instead, I just felt ashamed, as if her heat and the smell of her sweat were criticizing me. The air felt heavy. Maybe it was better for me to not use the demon eye unless absolutely necessary. Its convenience might hamper my growth. I understood as much after fighting Regerd. Right now, the most important thing wasn't thinking about how to utilize the Steam and Eye. Instead, I needed to hone my combat ability. True, I was a better fighter than when I used the eye, but my skill would eventually plateau if I relied on that. Relying on a crutch would only come back to haunt me later. It was dangerous. I almost let myself play right into the schemes of that treacherous devil, the man god. I decided I would only use my demon eye as a final trump card. That night, I spent time thinking about myself. Ultimately, we hadn't found a way to cross the ocean yet. I messed up somewhere? I followed the man god's advice well enough, but all I had gained was his demon eye. Was this supposed to help somehow? Like with gambling? But pleasures like gambling didn't exist here on the demon continent. If they did, they were probably in the form of betting on brawls between two people. That wouldn't earn me much money. We could use Regent as a gladiator and charge a participation fee of 1 crude iron with a prize pool of 5 green coins. But eventually he'd run out of opponents. No matter how much I thought about it, I couldn't come up with any solutions. We were still in the same situation as we were before I was given the man god's advice. In a way, we had wasted a week, wasted an entire week. Okay, I guess I should sell it. Saying the words out loud helped strengthen my resolve. Fortunately, Regent wasn't around tonight, and Eris was already on the edge of her bed with her belly hanging out. It would be troublesome if she caught a cold, so I pulled a blanket over her. There was no one to stop me. Surely the Black Alley pawn shop was still open, right? After all, shops that dealt with suspicious items were always open at night. With my staff in one hand, I left the inn, only to make it 3 steps outside. I only made it 3 steps outside. Where are you going this late at night? Regent was standing in my way. He hadn't been in the room, so I thought he was off somewhere else. Clearly, I was wrong. Damn it. What was he trying to do? Peep on people? I had to fool him somehow. I was just going to have some sexy and dangerous late night fun at one of the brothels. You need your staff to have sex with a woman? Uh, it's a prop for sex play. Silence. I
It's
knew it was.
called wand dancing, sir.
Jesus Christ. But then you drop it and then break the thing, and then all hell breaks loose. Ugh. Also, I don't think Eris would approve of that, but anyway. Silence. I knew that wasn't going to cut it. You intend to sell it? Yes. His aim was so precise I had to confess. I'm going to ask you again. Are you going to sell that staff? Yes. The staff is made out of really good quality materials, so it should sell for quite a sum. I'm not talking about that. Isn't that staff important to you? Just like this pendant. He held up Roxy's pendant hanging around his neck. Yes, it's just as important. If similar problems happen in the future, would you sell this pendant too? I paused. If it were necessary. He took in a deep breath. I thought he was going to scream, even though he wasn't the type to raise his voice unless it had something to do with children. He didn't yell. Instead, he breathed out a sigh as he spoke. I would never give up my spear. Not even if it were driven against a wall, or even if I were driven against a wall. That's because it's a memento from your son, right? No, because it's the embodiment of a warrior's spirit. A warrior's spirit, huh? Those were elegant words, but they wouldn't get us across the ocean. There was a sadness in Reader's eyes. You said we had 3 options before. I did, I agreed. I don't remember selling your staff being part of any of those options. It wasn't. It seemed he was going to reproach me for lying to him. No, I never intended to lie. Selling my staff was a part of the frontal attack option. Have I still not earned your trust? Trust? I trust you, I said. Then why won't you discuss it with me? I averted my eyes at the question. I knew he wouldn't approve of my plan. That's why I didn't talk to him about it. Perhaps you could say that was proof that I didn't really trust him after all. I believe I've come to the understanding, or to understand the current state of the world in the past year. Even if we completed missions from the guild or went dungeon diving, we would never be able to save up 200 coin or iron ore coins. It's too much money. Reader was being unusually realistic in his speech tonight. Did he eat something weird? You knew that. That's why you came up with the option of using a smuggler. I wouldn't have thought of that, but that's the only way for me to get to the Millis continent. You're correct about that. So why are you trying to sell your staff? The only thing I came up with was a better option, not the best option. The best option, the one where everything worked out perfectly, was too difficult and would likely end in failure. So I didn't know the correct solution, just I hadn't any other time before, or just as I hadn't any other time before. That was also why I wasn't convinced that using a smuggler really was the right option. Even if it is the right option, there's no point if it creates a rift within our party, I said. So you think that if we rely on a smuggler, it will create a rift? Yes, because according to your values, a smuggler is nothing more than a criminal. Smuggling. Slaves were included in the list of goods they carried. Plus, one of the more popular crimes in this world was kidnapping. Children were easy to kidnap. Put simply, smugglers were accomplices to kidnapping and selling children. Rudius. Yes? It's my fault that things have come to this. If it were just the two of you, you wouldn't have to worry about getting 200 green ore coins. On the other hand, if he hadn't been with us, we might have met with disaster on the way here. Richard helped us countless number of times. Even if you solved the problem by selling your staff, my pride can't accept that. His pride didn't change what needed to be done. If I sell the staff, I'll get the money. Then we can play by the rules, pay, and cross the sea. No one has to have any regrets. No one has to compromise anything. That's the smartest way to go about this, right? But the shame I will feel because you sold it will still remain. Eris will be bothered by it too. Isn't that rift that you were talking about avoiding? Or isn't that the rift that you were talking about avoiding? I went silent as Regard looked straight at me. Look, for a smuggler, I'll turn a blind eye to their crimes. He had a serious look on his face. He probably resolved not to interfere, even if he encountered an abducted child, just so I wouldn't have to sell my staff. It was all for my sake. He was bending his own principles and beliefs for my sake. If his resolve was that strong, I couldn't argue with the point with him. If during a trip you see a real, or if during the trip you see a real sleaze bag and you can't hold back, please tell me. We should at least be able to help a child. If Regard was that serious about it, then I would drop this plan. However smart I thought it was. We rely on a smuggler across the sea, but this time I wasn't going to cater to other people. If Regard couldn't hold himself back, we would betray them without hesitation and help whoever needed it. We would use the criminals as needed and then toss them aside. All right, let's start looking for a smuggler, I said. Yeah, let's do that. I'm afraid you'll see a lot of unpleasant things along the way, but let's get through it together. Same to you. The two of us exchanged a firm handshake. We released our hands and were about to head back to the inn to sleep when Richard's face went rigid. He suddenly readied the spear in his hands. Who is it? What business do you have here? I trembled with surprise at how sudden and intimidating his actions were, then followed his gaze. There in the darkness of an alleyway was the figure of a lone man with a half smile on his bearded face. He had his arms raised as if to demonstrate that he had no ill intent. A sword hung at his side. He looked like he'd walked right out of a combat scene in a movie. Ooh, scary. Here I thought everything I'd heard about the spirit race was a load of crap. But here you are, the real thing. He wore a faint smile as he approached. I had seen this guy somewhere before. First off, could you put away that dangerous looking weapon? Not like I came here looking for a fight. I was searching for you so I could give you my thanks. This late at night. Little early for you to be off in dreamland, no? I remember now. This was a man I tangled with previously. The guy whose shoulder I bumped into after receiving my eye of foresight. Never dreamed he would come to thank me in the middle of the night. He really was a thug. Took me a while to find you. No one knew any magicians with bad eyesight, but when I heard the rumors about Dead End, I knew it was you. Your gray robe and ability to cast spells without chanting anything, as well as your height, short as a halfling, and that condescendingly polite way of talking. I wasn't actually a halfling, though. Keno mastered Regierd. You held me 7 days ago. And thanks to you, I also found that moron as well. When I found him, he had his chin smashed in and was collapsed in an alleyway. Poor fool. In the state he's in, he won't be able to drink anything but alcohol for a while. Not that he ever drank anything else anyway. Seriously? Nah, I was just joking. I do at least have one healing magician among my friends. Good, the man I bumped into might have been a pervy old lolicon, but at least he didn't have his jaw split open too. So is it that you came here to thank me for, or what is it that you came here to thank me for? Or excuse me. Huh. So is that what you came here to thank me for? That, and for using your magic to push me out of the way. You saved my noggin from getting busted. So that's all. Well, glad to hear it. The man spoke with extreme gravity. In my line of work, there's nothing worse than a debt of gratitude, no matter how small it is. If you don't pay it back, it'll eventually catch up with you, and you may get stuck in a situation where you have to betray your comrades. That's why it's best to pay it back and pay it back quickly. He shook his head dramatically and pointed at me. I was listening in, Kennel Master, and you're in luck. It just so happens you bumped into someone who was a member of a smuggling organization. Regent and I turned to look at one another. This guy was a member of a smuggling organization? What a convenient development. I would have suspected him of lying, but there was also the man god's advice. Perhaps the whole point was so I would meet this man. As I struggled to make a decision, the man seemed to misinterpret our silence and extended his palm towards us. That said, don't get the wrong idea. I'm returning a favor, but smuggling a spurt is on a completely different level. I don't think my life is worth 200 green ore. Unsure of what he meant, I turned my eyes to him and encouraged him to continue. The man just grinned. I expect Dead End to be pretty strong, so I got a favor. Feel like listening? He was going to return a favor, but also wanted one of his own? That seemed a bit off. Then again, he did see me using magic without chanting. His talk about paying a debt was probably just a cover. He was actually looking for someone competent to do a job for him. That was why he made his appearance when he heard our conversation. Richard cast a glance at me. Negotiating was my job after all. It depends on the details of your request. Nothing too difficult. Yet the conditions he listed were a bit unexpected. You see, we have to store smuggled goods before we deliver them, and then we have to keep them safe until the claimant comes to retrieve them. In a month from now, we're going to store some goods before shipping them. I want you to release those people. If possible, I'd like you to make arrangements so they get back to their homes. Isn't that the exact definition of betraying your friends? Nah, it's for their own good. There's one mixed among those goods, well, slaves as you'd call them, who will cause trouble for us in the future. Selling them would net us a huge fortune, but it would also come back to haunt us a year from now. He shrugged and continued. I tried to tell them no, but it's not like we're a single organized group. I was looking for someone both capable and tight lipped who could squash their plans. So, how about it? Once again, Regent and I traded glances. We weren't kidnapping, but rather saving people. If that were the case, I didn't see the problem with it, but why can't you do it? With your sword and your abilities, you should be able to, right? That's right. I may not look it, but I'm the strongest among my buddies. Still, Mr. Spurred, it's not like I want to betray my comrades. I have to consider what would happen afterwards, you understand. Even if I saved them, I'd have nowhere to go anymore, so there'd be no point. Just because you're the strongest doesn't mean you get to be on top. Hmm. From the look on Regent's face, it was difficult to tell whether or not he understood where the man was coming from. He looked like he understood it on a logical level, but not an emotional one. Rudius, I don't mind. You decide. Richard had just said he would close one eye to any wrongdoing. No matter how seedy the man in front of us was, he would obey if I decided to do it. I considered it. A lot of this was suspicious. Still, this was something that transpired as a result of the man god's advice. While it was true I couldn't trust the god himself, I was probably best off not overthinking things and going with the flow, just like I did last time. Based on what we'd heard, we wouldn't be committing any crimes. There was a good chance the person we were helping was a horrible monster, but saving someone was still saving someone regardless of their character. Besides, we could really use a smuggler to lead us across the ocean. This wasn't a bad deal if we could cross without any charges or fees in return. With all that, it was easy to come to a decision. All right, we'll do it. Regard nodded and the man laughed. All right then, I'll trust you to do a good job. Name's Gallus Cleaner. Rudius Greyrat. And so it came to pass that we exchanged names and decided to take on a mission from a smuggling organization. Excuse me, one sec for water. Side story. Misconnections. Extra story. Roxy Migurdia, the woman who was Rudius' master, ended her sea voyage in the city of Windport on the Demon Continent. She stopped short as soon as she disembarked. Windport's townscape was much like that of Millis's northern city, Zantport. Even those laying their eyes on it for the first time would be beset with a sense of deja vu. However, deja vu wasn't the reason why Roxy paused. It was because there was a clear difference in the air here compared to Millis' continent. It's been so long, she thought. Nostalgia rose from the depths of her chest. When was the last time she was here? It must have been about 15 years ago. Now that she thought about it, she realized how much time had passed since she started envying the humans and fled from her village. When she landed in Millis continent's Milishon back then, she ate the sweets made by humans. She was shocked at how much such delicious food could exist in this world. She decided then that she would never eat food from the demon continent again, and that she would never return either. A bit simple minded, if I do say so myself, she thought. In truth, she hadn't returned since she left Millis continent for the central continent, and she'd never even considered going back. There was so much on the central continent. Everything she saw there was fresh and exciting, and before she knew it, she'd already lived on the central continent for as long as she lived on the demon continent. In all that time, the demon continent never crossed her mind. Not even when she went burrowing into the labyrinths and faced death, she stopped to think of the parents she left behind on the demon continent. Despite that, now she had returned. You never know where life will take you, she thought. Roxy, we're going. As she stood there, a woman called out to her. The woman's ears perked or peeked out from a mane of luxurious golden hair, the color of freshly baked bread. She was an elf, tall and slender, with a small waist and a nice round behind. Nice. Roxy's heart filled with envy every time she saw the woman from a distance. There was nothing she could do about it. It was how the elves were. She still wished she could have a body like that. And while their busts were similar, the elf woman was well balanced and beautiful, whereas Roxy looked plain and childlike. Yeah, I'm coming. A sigh escaped her lips. The name of that magnificent woman was Elena Lise Dragonrode. She was an elf warrior, a vanguard on the front line. She was equipped with a shield and an estoc, or which she primarily used for thrust attacks. Her skills were just as magnificent as her appearance. An estoc wasn't a common weapon amongst adventurers. In the Asura kingdom, it was used by the nobles during duels, and in the northern region, it was used by warriors when they were fully decked out in armor. The one in Elena Lisa's possession was a magic item found in the depths of the labyrinth. It was sturdier than most swords, and a single wave could create a wind vacuum that could cut down trees meters away. The buckler was also a magic item with the ability to mitigate any attack it received. Oh, solid land. It's solid land. An elderly dwarf came tottering out of the ship from behind Roxy. His heavy armor clanked and his grim beard swayed as he clung to his cane, his face ghostly pale. His name was Tallhand. Formerly, he was known as Tallhand of the Harsh, large mountain summit. He was about Roxy's height with more than twice the girth. This man, with his grim beard and heavy armor wrapped around his entire body, was a magician. Why was a magician wearing so much armor? Even Roxy questioned it at first, but Tallhand's feet were slow, and his agility non existent. If a beast attacked him, he would have no way of evading it. However, with such bulky armor protecting him, he could use magic right on the front lines. Are you alright, Mr. Tallhand? Should I cast healing on you? Oh, it's not necessary. He rocked his head back and forth and scooted his sluggish body forward. He was normally a bit more nimble than this, but he had gotten seasick and it had weakened him. Lena Elise put her hand on her hip and harumphed. Seriously, how pathetic. It's just a boat. Tallhand's face went red with anger. You, what did you say? Those two were quick to start fights with one another, so it fell to Roxy to intervene. Let's fight about this later, please. Miss Elena Lise, you don't have to comment on everything. Some people are predisposed to getting seasick. Roxy had met them at the city of Eastport in Dragon King's realm. The two of them were fighting in the Adventurers Guild, and at first Roxy ignored them. However, she intervened when she heard amidst their bickering that they were searching for people who had gone missing from the Fitoa region. They planned to travel to the Demon Continent. Neither one of them was good with the geography of the Demon Continents and had conflicting opinions as a result. Tallhand argued that they should go to Begarit Continent since they knew the lay of the land, or the northern part of the central continent. Elena Lise, on the other hand, said they could still search for people even if they didn't know the way, and they could always hire someone once they arrived. And there was Roxy, dealing with her anxiety alone, a native of the Demon Continent. It was almost as if she were fated to meet them. As their conversation continued, she found out they were former members of Paul and Zena's party. Fangs of the Black Wolf, they were called. Roxy had heard of them. They were one of the most famous parties in all the central continent. A mismatched party full of members with one or two odd quirks, which was once talk of the town. They rose to S rank in a few short years and disbanded shortly after, but Roxy remembered them well. Still, she never realized that Paul and Zena were members of the Fang of the Black Wolf, or Fangs of the Black Wolf. She couldn't hide her surprise. The two of them were just as surprised by her. After all, she was Roxy Magrudia, well known by the people as a Water King tier magician, a young blue haired girl who had hailed from the Demon Continent. She'd entered the University of Magic and within a few years obtained the title of Water Saint tier magician, then traversed a maze on Chiron Kingdom's outskirts that was 25 levels deep. After that, she took her seat as one of the Chiron Kingdom's court magicians. The troubadour sang stories of her early adventures, turning them to verse that spread her name further. It was a story about how a young female magician left her hometown, encountered three novice adventurers, and traveled around the Demon Continent before setting off for the Millis Continent. Her name didn't appear in the rhyme. However, adventurers who knew the song recognized that it was Roxy from her description. Calling the three of them, Roxy, Elena, Elise, and Tallhand, a group of kindred spirits would have been an overstatement, but it was true that their objectives coincided. Excuse me. Roxy was headed to the Demon Continent to search for Rudius, while the other two were honoring Paul's request to search for his family members, so they formed a party together and headed off to the Demon Continent. They boarded a ship with Millis Continent as their first destination. There, in the city of the Westport, they used an enormous amount of money to purchase Sleipnir horses and a carriage. A big expense, but little problem given the size of their purses. They avoided the holy capital of Milishion, since the other two didn't get along with Paul terribly well. Both also had a bad reputation among their respective kin, so they kept away from the Blue Wyvern Mountain settlement, where the dwarves resided, as well as the elf settlement in the Great Forest. Instead, they headed straight for Zantport. According to the pair, the rainy season would soon be upon the Great Forest, so they should move fast while they could. But with the way they forced the horses to move constantly, even at night, it seems like they just didn't want to be on the Millis continent for a second longer than what was necessary. Roxy assumed the real reason was that they simply didn't want to go back home. Whatever the reasons, they arrived on the Demon Continent in record time, so Roxy had no complaints. Let's head to the Adventurers Guild first, Roxy proposed, and the three of them started in that direction. The guild was always the first stop for adventurers. I hope it's a nice place, or I hope it's a nice place. Roxy pulled a face at Aline and Lisa's words. The elf may have appeared chaste, but she loved men. It was hard to imagine with that figure, but she'd probably had numerous children. According to her, this was all part of the curse that had been set upon her, but she didn't act the least bit aggrieved by it. In fact, she rather seemed to enjoy it. Roxy couldn't believe it. Miss Alina Elise, we're not searching for men. I know that. No, you don't, Roxy scowled. Alina Elise might not have had any problem with her so-called curse, but Roxy wished she would think of the party she was traveling with. It was fine for Alina Elise to do whatever she liked in her own time, but this was an emergency. Besides, if she got pregnant, it would only delay their trip even further. I wish you'd take it easy a little, Roxy thought. Maybe you should you should get a man or two yourself, and I can't do that. Maybe if I looked as gorgeous as you, Roxy thought bitterly. Unfortunately, none of the men that Roxy had ever taken an interest in saw her as a woman. She was popular with children, but she had no luck when it came to men. The Demon Continent's Adventurers Guild had a unique feel to it compared to its counterpart in the Central Continent. Many different races were paired together in parties. When Roxy entered, she chanced upon a group who were very clearly newbies. Three young boys, all dressed in warriors' gear. They approached her timidly. Um, what would you maybe form a party with us? Roxy smiled wryly in the face of their plea. No, as you can see, I'm already in a party. The three of them smiled bitterly at their refusal before making their retreat. It wasn't the first time she'd been invited to a party like this. She'd been asked numerous times by groups of three young boys. The troubadour had told her he would write songs of her, but she had never expected to become this famous. Well, or will you look at that, Roxy? You're getting invited by some fine boys, after all. Lilina Elise patted her on the head. This happened often. Roxy wasn't going to bother responding to it. She wasn't a child. Our ranks are too far apart. We couldn't form a party anyway. Roxy was currently A ranked. Boys beguiled by the troubadour's song were, on average, only D ranked. She'd never been approached by any who were above rank B. First time she got one of those party invitations, she bragged about how she was the main character in those songs, only to discover she wasn't actually named in them, thus embarrassing herself. It was a memory she'd prefer to forget. She never imagined the troubadour would fail to recognize her race. Instead, he wrongly assumed that she was only 12 and had become A ranked in a mere 2 years. Not only that, but the current version of the song was so over dramatized that it said she traveled the demon continent and became A ranked in only a year. Don't kid yourself, Roxy thought. In reality, it took her about 5 years to rise to rank A. With the demon continent as her base of operations, she rose to rank B in 3 years. From there, she spent 2 years hopping from party to party. That was still a quick rise, though. If she were to start over from rank F, she might be able to obtain an A ranking in just a year. But a party of kids with no experience could never swing that. You could have shaped them into men who would suit my tastes. What a shame. Elena Elise's words triggered a flashback to the three novice adventurers who had first approached her back then. They called themselves the Rikarisu Gang, three young boys who helped her out after she left the meager village, when she was nothing more than a countryside bumpkin who couldn't tell left from right. One of them was very sarcastic, always making him lies on the spot, but really good at looking out for people. Another loved to curse people out and had a foul mouth, but was also very determined. The third was incredibly clever, and the one who held the group together. He died during their journey. Their party had disbanded when they reached Windport, but she wondered, were the other two still alive and well? After adventuring on the central continent, she understood just how severe the conditions were here on the demon continent. There was a high chance they were already dead. Nokopar and Blaze, I hope they're still doing well. She found herself laughing when she thought of that. It had been 20 years. The two of them didn't have particularly long lifespans, so they might have retired from adventuring long ago. The only one who had stayed the same was her. Let's leave the nostalgia for some other time, she decided. Cutting her reminiscing short, she was here to find Rudius or his family. All right, let's start gathering information. She proposed to the other two and started scanning the inside of the guild. From the information they gathered, they found out that Dead End was in this town, part of a new up and coming group of adventurers who had quickly made a name for themselves. Dead End. There was no person on the demon continent who didn't know that name. Even among the Spur, they were considered particularly dangerous, beasts that targeted mainly children. When Roxy was just a child, her mother often threatened her with that name. If you don't behave, Dead End will come and steal you away, she would always say. They returned to the inn. Roxy's face soured once they pulled all the information they had about this Dead End. It's a bit difficult to believe. What part? Hard to believe anyone in their right mind would pretend to be Dead End. What was it about Dead End that was so terrifying? The fact that the actual group existed. Those on the central continent didn't know of it, but the name definitely referred to someone out there. Of course, Roxy had never seen them herself, but all the rumors she heard were terrifying. They were the most terrifying creatures on the demon continent. The Adventurers Guild had never listed their name exactly out of fear of retaliation, but if there was an extermination request for those demons, it would most definitely be S ranked. It was the type of job that would net an adventurer an instant S ranking and they completed it. I haven't a clue either, Lena Lee said. According to the information she'd gathered, the man claiming to be with Dead End was fair skinned, bald, and carried a spear with him. He was also said to be very handsome. Since they said he's a good looking guy, why do I invite him to my bed to get some more answers? Or, excuse me. Well, I guess Tallhan is also gay. Since they said he's a good looking guy, why don't I invite him to my bed to get some more answers? Tallhan hawked and spit in disdain. That info is useless. According to what Tallhan had gathered, Dead End was a group of three people. They referred to themselves respectively as Mad Dog Eris, Guard Dog Regard, and Kennel Master Regard. The latter two were brothers. The Mad Dog had red hair, the Guard Dog was a beanpole, and the Kennel Master was a midget. The Mad Dog used a sword, the Guard Dog used a spear, and the Kennel Master used a staff that was apparently a magic item. They didn't have a particularly good reputation. Hold on. The Mad Dog is quick to lose her temper, and the Kennel Master's done nothing but awful things. Apparently, the Guard Dog isn't a bad guy, though. Loves kids, has a strong sense of justice, and refuses to turn a blind eye to evil. That's a very strange assessment for people to make, Roxy thought. Perhaps the group had started those rumors themselves. If a party of miscreants did something good, it would spread like wildfire. Apparently, they weren't just violent, but canny about it as well. A dangerous bunch. Let's be sure to avoid them. Aye, the dwarf agreed. We don't need to be drawing the attention to the wrong sort when we're supposed to be looking for people. All right, let's move on to the main agenda, Roxy said, redirecting the conversation. Their purpose in heading to the Adventurers Guild hadn't been to glean information about the Dead End. Were there any rumors about people from the Fatoa region? Not one, said Tallhand. No, I didn't hear anything, said Alina Elise. It must be too late, Roxy thought. The Demon Continent was not the kind of soft place that one could survive being teleported to without proper equipment. It was a land where simply surviving a year could prove difficult for locals. Oh, excuse me. Also, it had already been a year since the Vitola region displacement. Those who were teleported might have all perished already. So the ones we're really searching for are Paul's family. So Zenith, Lilia, Aisha, and Rudius. Roxy had taught Tallhand and Elena Elise how they might identify each of them. Aisha was the only one she was vague about, because she only knew about her through Rudius's letters. Well, Zenith should be just fine. Elena Elise said. No doubt about that. The two of them knew Zenith, so they expressed no concern. Roxy, on the other hand, didn't know how capable Zenith was, but she trusted in these former members of the Fangs of the Black Wall who vouched for her. If Alina Elise and Tallhand thought Zenith would be fine, then she would be fine. Rudius also stands out, so we should be able to find him immediately. Roxy remembered the overwhelming talent that her 5-year-old pupil had demonstrated. He would surely be the talk of the town no matter where he went. Zenith and Rudius would be the easiest to find if they dug for information. They also had the strength to survive on the demon continent as long as they landed somewhere close to civilization. That was why they prioritized finding information on Lilia and Aisha from the start. Let's set a deadline. 2 days to gather as much information on Lilia and Aisha as we can. Then on the third day, we make preparations to hit up other settlements in the area. Does that sound like a plan? Isn't that a bit too soon? Roxy shook her head at Lisa's words. There's a high likelihood they're already dead, and the demon continent is big. We'll make a single pass through the major cities and submit missing persons requests at each guild along the way. The Sur Kingdom would cover costs incurred while searching for residents of the Fatoa region. As long as their group submitted requests at each guild, the reward for successful completion would be provided by the Asura Kingdom, so they could leave for that for adventurers to pursue. It wasn't an automated process because the guild required someone to sign a request form before they could post it. Hello.
Hey.
On the other hand, if the guild didn't post these requests, or those requests, then Asura Kingdom had no reason to pay the guild. Roxy felt genuinely irritated by how atrociously the Asura Kingdom was handling such a widespread disaster. It was a major power, so she thought they should be taking more proactive actions. In truth, the only people actually participating in the search endeavors were Paul and those connected to him. In other words, only those affected by the disaster. Looks like all that talk about the Asura Kingdom's inner circle being corrupt was more than a rumor, she thought. It was a country with the longest history in the world, so it was still hanging on even as its traditions and power deteriorated. All right, tomorrow let's busy ourselves with gathering information. Okay, will do. Roger. Or Roger. Roxy wasn't the type to linger over things. No matter where she stayed, she never wasted any time. She always finished things quickly and then set off. That part of her personality showed up when she initiated Rudius, teaching him her special technique and then immediately setting off again. Making swift decisions was her forte, but also part of why Rudius saw her as an airhead. Others had pointed it out to her, but Roxy still considered it as a strength. That was why she settled on a schedule of submitting a request to the guild on the first day, searching around on the second, and setting off by the third. A prompt, concise schedule to be sure. If they had stayed for a week, the results may have been a little different. On the second, Roxy's curiosity got the best of her and she went to go see what Dead End was up to. Their group stood out, so it was easy to find them. The pair were training diligently on the beach, just as their information said. One was a bald beanpole, while the other was a young red-headed girl. She wielded her sword in both hands with such purpose, swinging it at a frightening speed, while the bald man parried their attacks easily. Her information said Dead End was a 3-person group with 1 tall person and 2 small people. Looks like the tiny kennel master isn't with them, she thought. The guard dog and mad dog continued their high-speed clash of offense versus defense. Perhaps clash wasn't the right word, given that the guard dog simply deflected the mad dog's attacks, but the techniques he used were beyond Roxy's level. Roxy watched them from afar, peeking from behind the shadow of a boulder. It was almost as if this were a pro baseball and she was the older sister of a pitcher who used balls of magic as their weapon in battle. 2 of them were strong, even to Roxy, who had traveled across the world as an adventurer. That wasn't strength that which could be achieved through technique alone. It might be good to make contact with him after all. As soon as she thought about that, the guard dog looked over his shoulder. It felt like their eyes met. His gaze was so intense that it gave Roxy an unspeakable sense of terror, enough to give her the illusion that she was prey being hunted. She slipped away hastily. Regard sensed her from the very beginning. He wasn't sure what she wanted or if she was just watching. When he casually looked in her direction, he saw a girl's face peeking out from behind a rock. No, not a young girl, he realized. An adult, meagered female. He couldn't tell from a glance. There was no fooling Regard's third eye. He didn't recognize her presence, but there was also more than one meagered settlement. He figured she was probably just watching out of curiosity, and when he looked back, she turned away and ran off somewhere. Did I scare her away? He wondered. He let his guard down momentarily, and Eris dove in. It was an attack with power behind it. Gah! After exchanging 3 blows, Eris struck Regard on the back of his hand and made him drop his sword. Yay! Did I do it? I did it, right? Yeah! Eris pumped both hands in joy. Lately, her skills were beginning to take shape. In the future, she would surely be a fine swordswoman. Right now, she was still young. If she thought too much of herself now, it might spell disaster in her future. He hadn't planned to let her win a fight for a while, but that meager girl had caught his attention and he let his guard down for a moment. Regard let out a sigh, quietly enough so that Eris wouldn't hear it. Hold on, drink water. Roxy leaned over her shoulder countless times as she hurried back towards the inn. The whole time, she worried that she was being followed and that an attack might be coming. If she was going to fight someone of that caliber, she needed to prepare a magic crystal. She might even need a magic circle drawn in a scroll. It didn't seem like they would attack just because she'd been watching them. If they were crazy enough to call themselves Dead End, Roxy wanted to be prepared. Ah, or, oh god, this is moaning. Okay. Ah, yes, right there. Harder, harder. Roxy felt exasperated when she heard the moans from behind Alina Lisa's door. The elf hadn't even bothered with gathering information. She simply found a man to bring to the inn so she could enjoy herself. Seriously? Roxy had heard about Alina Lisa's habit of bringing men to her room from Tall Hand. No matter their circumstances, Alina Lisa would always fall for some man she met and spend the night
Oh
with him.
shit! I forgot you were gonna have to do that.
Yeah, I hope it worked. I hope it came across okay.
It's
I took your
something. You did
silence as,
well.
oh god.
You did well. It was fine. No, I've been muted this whole time.
Okay, cool. All the time
Yeah.
watching stuff has paid off after all.
Yeah,
Good.
go for it. Keep going.
Alina Lise would always fall for some man she met and spend the night with him. That included their time in Zantport. According to Tallhand, she even did this when they were in the depths of a labyrinth. The woman had no principles. At the same time, Roxy felt somewhat relieved. She would have felt helpless if she'd been left alone. As long as Alina Lise was in the neighboring room, she could prepare herself for battle and wait for her. Once the elf was done, Roxy would seize her by the ear and head out to resume gathering information together. That way, she could also keep her eye on the elf, effectively killing two birds with one stone. Although I doubt they would come all that way to the inn, Roxy thought, as she entered her room to conduct battle preparations. The walls weren't particularly thin, yet she could still hear Alina Lisa's moans filtering through. Listening to them put Roxy in a weird mood herself. No, you don't, she thought, and grabbed her right hand with her left, just as it was reflexively reaching south. She didn't have the luxury of time for that right now. They've been at it for a long time, she thought when 3 hours had passed. Holy shit. Roxy had continued to wait quietly. There seemed to be no end in sight for Lena Lisa's tryst. Granted, there was also no indication that Dead End was going to launch any attacks on them either. Roxy felt like an idiot. Not only could she not do what she needed, but she also couldn't express her frustration at Alina Lise for being so selfish. It was especially infuriating since, unlike the elf, Roxy was showing self restraint and telling herself that now wasn't the time to get busy. To get busy when her anger hit its peak.
Mm.
Roxy finally busted down Alina Lisa's door. Just how long are you going to keep this up? We're supposed to be gathering. Oh my, Roxy, when did you get back? Uh, oh. There were 5 men in the middle of the room. Would you like to join in? There was a straw male odor. The men all had vulgar smiles, and Alina Lise was mounted atop one of them, looking as if she were in the throes of ecstasy. The fact that there were multiple people and that they were all consenting to this was beyond Roxy's comprehension. Uh, the scene before was so reprehensible that Roxy couldn't process it. Sorry, I was trying to do a DBZ scream, but it didn't work. Roxy let out a futile scream as she scuttled out of the room. She flew into the adjacent one, completely out of breath, and took a hold of her staff. Oh, spirits of the magnificent waters, I beseech the Prince of Thunder, with your majestic blade of ice, slay my enemy, Icicle Blast! The inn was left partially destroyed. They set out from the town on the third day. They barely managed to gather any information after everything that happened, and they forgot to submit a request to the guild. They also destroyed an inn, which cost them a considerable amount. This is all Miss Alina Lisa's fault. You can't blame me. I was in a back alley gathering information when they came to me with their passionate appeal. Still, there were five. 5 people, you know? You'll understand someday. A strong, beautiful adventurer like me, being subdued and treated like a sex toy by 5 of those thugs. Just thinking about it is enough to get me pregnant. I don't want to understand. When Roxy was at the University of Magic, she was still a child and didn't understand the appeal of having a lover or being married. The first time she ever thought about wanting something like that was when she saw how intimate Paul and Zenith were with each other. That was when she finally decided she wanted the same for herself. Still, how? She wondered all the same. Then she remembered what an acquaintance at the university told her. That acquaintance had met her husband in the depths of a maze. Their shared struggle and the way they overcame it led to their marriage. This is it, Roxy thought. If I dive into a labyrinth, I should be able to find a partner too. That fantasy grew larger and larger inside her head. She would somehow bump into someone who was tall, manly, and fashionably dressed, a young human man with a youthful appeal, in the depths of a labyrinth, and he would save her. Then the two of them would combine their strength and make their escape, and in doing so, their love would bud and blossom. The youth would discover one of his friends had died, and Roxy would comfort him. That would be their first night together. Jesus Christ, this is fucking brick hammer of foreshadowing. When she actually did journey into the labyrinth, those fantasies were quickly shattered. The labyrinth was a harsh place, and the adventurers who entered them were a stern lot. The only youthful looking person among them was Roxy herself. By the 5th floor, there were no other solo adventurers. By the 10th floor, she decided things were tough enough that she needed to gather a party, but people mocked her for her childlike appearance and laughed her off countless times. She got stubborn after that and continued further downwards on foot. Ah, the stupidity of youth. She came close to death numerous times, but was lucky enough to escape its clutches. She never wanted to repeat that again. Well, you have to start by fighting your first man anyway. How about it? Next time we can both absolutely not. The dream was shattered. Still, she held on to one hope. Perhaps it was impossible for her to find some hunk at the bottom of a labyrinth, but she could still fall in love with the ordinary way and have an ordinary wedding. In the meantime, she had absolutely no intention of giving her body over to a man whose name she didn't know just because Eleni Elise managed to reel him in. Besides, I don't have the time for all that. At least Roxy decided she was best off alone while she was wandering the demon continent. That was how Roxy made her first misstep and began her adventure across the demon continent. Oh boy. Chapter 4. Hold on. Chapter 4. The Sage on Board. That night, the man associated with the smuggling operation, Gallus, left after telling us he would be in touch. We were forced to wait 15 days until he sent a man with more details about the job. The smuggled goods would be temporarily housed in a building which we would infiltrate. We would free those who had been taken and escort them back to their homes. As for how we would go about it, Gallus left that up to us. The information was vague and the plan sounded sloppy. Still, we were just swords for hire. All we needed to do was fulfill our mission. There was some danger involved, so we decided that only Regard and I would be carrying out this mission. Eris would stay behind at the inn. Hmm. It was midnight on the day of the operation. The moon was nowhere to be seen. The place in question was a pier located on the edge of the harbor. It was eerily quiet, the only sound being the echo of the ocean's waves. A suspicious figure stood by a small boat, a hood lowered over their heads to hide their eyes. If you wanted someone smuggled across the border, this was the guy. Just as we had arranged it in our briefing beforehand, I handed Regard over to him. Per instructions, Regard's hands were shackled behind him. A smuggler treated anyone they handled like a slave. The transport of slaves cost 5 green ore coins across the board, but we were exempt. The fact that Gallus had paid for us in advance didn't change how we were being handled, though. We weren't being treated as mercenaries whom Gallus had hired, but rather criminals who were smuggling slaves. All right, then I leave it in your hands. The smuggler didn't say a word. He just nodded, guided Regard onto the small boat, and slipped a sack over Regard's head. The boat had a single boatman. There were many others on board with sacks over their heads. Judging by their heights, none of them were children. Once Regard was safely on board, the smuggler gave a boatman a signal. The latter, who was sitting at the head of the small vessel, chanted a spell. The little boat took off without a sound, gliding across the water through the pitch black of night. I couldn't hear the words clearly, but it seemed to be a water spell that created a current to propel them forward. Something I could also do. The little boat moved to the little boat moved towards a merchant ship anchored in the open sea, where the slaves were transferred over to be shipped off in the early morning. Even from this spot on the smaller boat, Regard continued to look my way the entire time. He knew exactly where I was, despite the bag on his head. Watching him, I heard "Goodbye, my lover," playing in the background of my mind. Wait, no. He wasn't my lover. And anyway, it wasn't goodbye because this was only temporary. The next day, I saw the lizard we had been riding around on for the past year. The sea had carried us all the way here from the city of Rikarisu, and it was reliable enough that I wish I could have taken it to the Fitoa region with us, but it would have cost us extra to bring it onto the boat. Plus, we could use horses on the Midless continent. The horses of this world were fast, and their stamina was an entirely different level. We didn't need to ride the lizard anymore. Eris wrapped her arms around the lizard's neck and gave it a few pats. They exchanged no words, but it was a sad parting. The lizard had grown attached to Eris. Often during our travels, it would lick her head all over and leave her hair drenched in drool. Oh. We couldn't keep calling it Lizard forever. We should at least give it a name. Okay, from now on, your name will be Gilaha, I decided. Gwelaha? Okay, Gwelaha. Gwelaha, a man of the sea who longed for the more human companions. This one's really obedient. You must have trained it well in your travels, huh? The merchant who handled lizards was impressed. I suppose so. Regard was the one who trained it. Not that he did anything special, but there was certainly a master-servant dynamic between him and Gwelaha. The lizard must have realized he was the most powerful person in our party. On the other hand, it didn't take a liking to me at all and bit me several times. Yeah, thinking about it just pissed me off. Well, hold on. Haha, just what I'd expect from Dead End's Kennel Master. That'll add a little something extra to this one. Most people treat these guys too rough, and it makes my job of retraining them that much harder. Merchant was that of the Rugonia tribe, a race of men with lizard heads. On the demon continent, the lizard men trained the lizards. It's only natural to treat your companions with kindness when you're traveling together. Again, the song Goodbye, My Lover played in my head. In my hand, I held the money we got for selling our companion off. It felt like dirty money when I thought about it that way. How strange. Let's quit it with the name after all. It just makes me feel attached, I decided. Goodbye then, unnamed lizard. I'll never forget how it felt to ride on you. What? I heard Eris sniffling. After selling our steed, we traveled on foot to board our ship. Rudius, it's a ship. It's so huge. Whoa, it's rocking. What is this? From the moment she got on board, Eris started yelling in excitement. Perhaps she had already forgotten about the lizard. Her ability to recover quickly was one of her strengths. The ship had sails and was made of wood. It was a brand new model that had been completed just a year ago. Not only was this its maiden voyage, but it was also pushing the envelope by traveling all the way to Zanport. But this one's a little different than the one we saw before, right? You've seen a ship before, Eris. Or you've seen a ship before, Eris? Hadn't she said this was the first time she'd even seen the ocean? What are you talking about? You had one of these in your room, remember? Oh, right. I didn't remember making one of these. That was a fond memory. Back then, I wanted to work on my earth magic, so I started crafting things. Once I realized I might not, or I might be able to sell them, I started making 1/10 scale Roxy figures. I hadn't done that in a while, though. Right now, we didn't know what I would need to use my mana, so I hadn't done any training that would consume that precious resource. The only training I'd done was the physical kind, alongside Regid or Eris. I really had been slacking off recently. Once things calmed down, I probably need to sharpen my skills again. I made those using my imagination, so it's no surprise that it wasn't a perfect replica, I said. Not to mention that this was supposed to be a new type of ship. As to what part of it was new, I had no idea. It's amazing, isn't it? That's something this big can cross the ocean. Eris was incredibly impressed. We left port 3 days later. As we were on board, I began to think. A ship. A ship was a treasure trove. Now that we were on board, there had to be an event scene. I had played enough dating sims I could say that without a shadow of a doubt. For instance, dolphins might skip along the ship or alongside the ship. The heroine would see that and say, "Look, amazing!" And in response, I would say, "My techniques in bed are even more amazing." And then she would say, "How wonderful! Make me yours." And I would tell her, "Come on, baby, we can't do something like that right here." Yeah, no, that wasn't quite it. Ah,
I hate
that's it.
and love how you said, "Come on, baby."
I don't know.
I hate it so much.
I'm just thinking of what is skeezy dating sim protag voice. I guess that
Oh
worked.
God.
Good. That's the effect I wanted.
Ah, I want to punch you
Yeah.
now.
Good. Do it. Make me feel again. Yeah, no, that wasn't quite it.
Okay.
Ah, that's it. When you think of a ship, you think of being attacked at sea. An octopus, a squid, a serpent, pirates, or a ghost ship, something like that. One of those would attack and sink us. We would be set adrift, then become stranded. We'd arrive on a deserted island where the heroine and I, just the two of us, would begin our lives together. At first, she would hate me, but after overcoming numerous hurdles, she would gradually grow less soon and more daring. Plus, there was only one thing for a man and a woman stranded on a deserted island to do together: exchange of looks, the feverish heat, two hot blooded youths breaking out in a sweat amidst the echo of crashing sea waves. Afterward, we would enjoy the sunrise together, paradise just for the two of us. On the issue of an octopus attack, the heroine's fate was already sealed. She would be assailed by numerous tentacles, more than you would think an eight-legged octopus could possess, and would string her up in the air. Her body would writhe as if in agony. The balls of
Okay,
her
I've seen
breasts would
enough
become.
hentai to know where this is going.
I mean, it's basically doing that right now.
Yeah.
The bulge of her breast would become more prominent as the creature wrapped its tentacles around her and dove right into blows. It was the greatest spectacle of all. Want to make it sweat blow in his hands.
What the fuck
Just
are
like
you
can
doing?
pull her
Read
husband.
properly.
Give her a second. I'm trying to speed past it, but also trying to mimic fucking sketchy dating sim protag.
Oh God.
Okay. The bulge of her breasts would become more prominent as the creature wrapped its tentacles
Attaboy.
around her and dove beneath her clothes. It was the greatest spectacle of all, one that would make sweat pool in the palm of your hands, a sight you couldn't pull your eyes away from, even for a second. Reality, however, was cruel. Eris sat pale.
That's the best Harrison Ford impersonation I've ever heard from you.
Reality is a lot
Hey,
more
hey,
crueler
Harrison
than
Ford,
you
who
think.
shot first, Han or Greedo? I don't care.
Fuck yeah.
I don't fucking care. Where's my
I don't
money?
fucking care. Where's my money? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Eris sat pale face in the cabin with a bucket in front of her. Her excitement over her first voyage on a ship quickly turned to nausea about midway through. I wondered why she was fine riding atop a lizard, but somehow couldn't stomach a ship. As someone who had never experienced motion sickness, I couldn't comprehend it. Although there was one thing I could say: no matter how mild the rocking of the ship was, it did not seem to ease the suffering of a person who got seasick. On the fourth day, an octopus showed up. At
On the
least that's
first
what I
day?
assumed it was. The fourth day, an octopus showed up.
No,
I
I
mean, it could
like
have
the
been the
first
first day. I
day.
don't know.
The first day.
The
is really
first day.
fun. The first day.
At least that's what I assumed it was.
It's the first
It was
and
a
the fourth.
startling, yeah, the the in between.
The in between.
It was on the ship for a long time. Okay, it was waiting to do hentai shenanigans.
All right.
It was it was a startling sea blue color and extremely large. Unfortunately, it didn't manage to capture any girls. Instead, it was abruptly dispatched by an S-rank party of bodyguards. There shouldn't have been any escort missions available. If there had been, I would have snapped it right up. I asked a merchant nearby who informed me that these people specialized in escorting ships. Their party's name was Aqua Road. They apparently had an exclusive contract with the Shipwrights Guild, and their primary work was acting as sea escorts. As a result, they specialized in dispatching any of the creatures that might appear on our route. There would be no thrilling tentacle event scene after all. Too bad. That said, there was something to glean from this. I stood aside and watched them fight, just in case something happened, so I saw the way they fought as a party. To be honest, I snorted in laughter when I first saw their individual strengths. The swordsperson fighting in their vanguard was strong, but not as strong as Ghislaine. The one who primarily deflected the enemy's attacks and drew his attention was also a strong warrior, but nothing like Regard. The rear guard was the one who stopped the octopus, a magician who was surely weaker than I was. I was disappointed. Was this really what an S-ranked group of people or S-ranked group looked like? I thought most of the people in this world were pretty strong. These people weren't as impressive as I imagined. However, I quickly came to a different conclusion. They were an S-ranked party. I shouldn't have been looking at their individual strengths, but rather how they worked as a team. Even though they weren't that strong, they still managed to defeat that huge octopus. Even though they weren't that strong, they still obtained an S ranking. That was what was important. Each person fulfilled their role within the party, and that's how they wielded such power as a group. That was what teamwork meant. That was what Dead End lacked. Each member of Dead End was powerful, but what about our teamwork? Reader's teamwork was outstanding, possibly because he had operated in a squadron himself. He was skilled at group battles. Even if Eris or I made a mistake, he could cover for us. He was also great at drawing aggro, keeping the beast's eyes glued to him the entire time. Regard was also too strong. In truth, he could slay our opponents on his own, but we were forcing him to work with a team during battle. I wouldn't call it exactly bad, but there was no doubt that it distorted things. I thought I knew what it meant to battle as a team, but that was just in theory. Knowing the theory didn't mean you'd be able to put it into practice. I had a habit of focusing on enemies that were coming towards me, and when they outnumbered us significantly, I relied too greatly on Regard. Eris was horrible. She would listen to her directives just fine, but when it came to actual battle, she couldn't match her rhythm to ours. She was too fixated on the enemy in front of her, and she threw herself too intensely into battle. The longer a fight went on, the less she would listen. Even though we called out to her, she would never recover for either of us, not even once. Granted, neither Regard nor I really needed it in the first place. Still, if this kept up and Regard left us for whatever reason, I wasn't confident I could fully cover for her. Even though I had a demon eye, I still only had two hands. Just one hand for protecting myself and one hand for protecting Eris. The range of one hand was limited, or was indeed limited. Rudius. As I was busy with my thoughts, Eris's pale, sickly face appeared on deck. She drifted, staggering over to the edge of the ship, and vomited over the side. At this point, it seemed there was nothing left in her stomach except bile. What are you doing up here when I'm suffering like this? Sorry, the sea is just so beautiful. You're so mean. Ugh. Tears pooled in her eyes as she threw her arms around me. Her seasickness was severe. Day 5, Eris was in a cabin and down for the count as always, and I was constantly attending to her. My head hurts. Heal me. Okay. I found out from one of the sailors that a little bit of healing magic could ease her suffering. Seasickness was caused by an imbalance in the autonomic nervous system. Casting a healing spell on her head would bring some temporary relief. At least that's how it should have worked. I couldn't continuously cast it, and healing magic didn't erase all the nausea. Hey, am I going to die? I'll laugh at you if you die of seasickness. Don't. There was no one else in the cabin. The ship itself was gigantic, but there weren't many people traveling from the Demon Continent to the Millis Continent. I wasn't sure if this was because the fees for passage were so much more expensive for demons than they were for humans, or because demons just found it easier living on the Demon Continent. Eris and I were alone together. This quiet, dimly lit room. There she was, without the power to fight back, and there I was besides her, having spent the past 5 days watching her weaken. At first, there was no problem with that, except healing. That was a problem. To heal her, I needed to touch her head. Since I needed to cast my spell fairly regularly, she was using my lap as a pillow while I kept my hands wrapped around her head, repeatedly healing her. That's when I started to feel strange. No, strange was a misleading word to use. To put it bluntly, I was starting to get horny. Just hear me out here. There we were in a cabin, and Eris, who was usually so strong-willed, was suddenly misty-eyed, her breathing erratic as she called out to me in a weak voice, entreating me. Please, I'm begging you, please, just do it. Heal me. My internal volume controls drowned out the word heal. It just sounded like she was begging for it. Of course, that wasn't true. Eris was just weak. I had never experienced seasickness, but I knew it had to be awful. There was nothing inherently sexual about touching another person. Still, she was of age, and I could feel the heat of her body. That alone was stimulating, even if the touch wasn't sexual in nature. The excitement it produced was slight, but continuously doing this for a while would spell trouble for me. Touching, no matter where on her body, was still touching. Touching meant that we were close. Being close meant that her body was in full view. Her forehead, broken out in a cold sweat, nape of her neck, her chest, everything. Eris was so weak and listless. Normally, she would punch me if I touched her without reason. Right now, she was like a fish on the chopping board. That meant she was basically mine for the taking, right? Those horrible feelings started to take root within me. I was sure she wouldn't resist me, even though I exposed the intensity of my desire by ripping off her clothes and launching myself at her. No, she couldn't resist me. She would shed a single tear as she reconciled the fact that she had no choice but to accept me, a feeble look of surrender on her face. Ugh. This is so much worse than the light novel. The mere thought made my crotch feel like Excalibur before Arthur took hold of it. And in my head, Arthur screamed. He was yelling at me, telling me that right now Eris couldn't resist. He told me I would never get another chance like this. Now was my chance to lose the virginity that I had been holding on to for so long. Maynard Merlin, however, urged me to resist. I had already made a decision when I promised to wait until I was 15. I said I would wait until this journey was over. I supported what Merlin was saying, but my ability to resist was reaching its limits. Jesus, that's a bright-ass page. Okay. What if I tested things out by just touching her breast? I was sure they would be soft, and soft wasn't the only thing they would be. That's right. Breasts were more than just soft. There was a firmness in the middle of all that softness, a grail. Sorry, I didn't read that right. A grail? The holy grail that my inner author sought. What would happen if my hand, my Gawain, found that grail? That battle of Cumlan. What the fuck? Ah, of course. It wasn't just the holy grail. Eris's body was changing day by day, particularly her bosom. She was in midst of puberty. I wasn't sure if it was genetic, but she was rapidly developing in a way that resembled her mother. If I kept up at this rate, she would grow into a voluptuous beauty. Some men out there might say, yeah, I think the smaller ones are just right. Everyone had their preferences, but I could say I'd been there at the moment when you would describe a woman's breast as being just right. I could take her breasts in my hands at this very moment, while they were still small. Her breathing was erratic. Rudius? She looked at me anxiously. Are you okay? Her voice struck me, a voice that was unusually so loud, or that was usually so loud and forceful. This time it was the perfect pitch, enough to make my chest tingle. Yeah, I'm fine. I promise. Don't worry. If you're suffering, you don't have to force yourself, you know? I don't have to force myself. So in other words, I didn't have to deny myself? Did that mean I could do whatever I wanted? Just kidding. I understood what she meant. She was worried about whether my mana would hold, since I was continuously healing her. I knew that already. Knew that she trusted me. Trusted that I would never use this opportunity to lay a hand on her. I wouldn't betray that trust. Rudius Grey Rat would not betray that trust. That was the proper way to respond to a person's trust. Okay, I told myself. Let's just act like a machine. A machine. I was a healing machine. I would become a robot with no blood or tears. I would see nothing, because if I saw her face, I would do something impulsive. With that thought in mind, I decided to close my eyes. I wouldn't hear anything either. If I heard her voice, I'd do something reckless, so I blocked off my hearing too. I was a silent, antisocial outcast, and since I had no earthly desires, I could do nothing impulsive. With that in mind, I closed my heart off. However, I could still feel the heat from her head and and smell the scent of her body. Between those two things, my will was instantly shattered. It felt like my head was going to boil over. Can't do this. I'm at my wit's end, I thought. Eris, I need to go to the bathroom. Oh, so that's what you were holding in. Okay, see you in a bit. She fell for that easily. I gave her a sidelong glance before exiting the cabin. I moved quickly. I needed somewhere deserted. I found a spot quickly enough. There I had a moment of supreme bliss. Phew! Just like that, I felt like a boy who had transformed into a sage. When I closed my eyes, the sense became stronger, as if I had reached sainthood, like a magical girl transforming and obtaining even greater powers. Oh my god, this is the fucking Krillin cave thing.
Oh,
What the
boy.
hell
God.
happened to this corner of the boat?
Yeah.
It's everywhere!
Oh god, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you'd be relaxing in the cave. Well, I would if it wasn't filled with puddles of... Yeah, all right.
Yeah, in the cave. Get over it.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Okay, I'm back. At least he found somewhere. Okay,
God
I'm
fucking
back.
Damn it. God fucking
Yeah.
damn it, you guys.
I mean, that's what this is, though.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That doesn't make it any better.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
God,
how
it's
long
worse.
has it been since?
Jesus Christ,
3
calm down.
weeks.
Calm down.
Jesus. Ugh.
We're trying to get through this
Yeah.
chapter, my guy. Let him.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, welcome back. I returned to the cabin with a look of enlightenment on my face like Bodhisattva and became a healing machine at last. Rudius, did you eat something? Huh? You smell weird. I'd forgotten to wash my hands. Ugh. Eris returned to her normal, lively self the moment we got off the boat. I never want to ride on another ship again. Yeah, but we'll have to do it one last time in order to get from the Millis continent to the central continent. She looked disheartened at that, then anxious as she recalled what had transpired on the ship. Hey, when that happens, will you heal me the entire time again? Sure, but next time I might do something naughty to you, I said matter-of-factly. Ugh, why would you say something so cruel? It wasn't cruelty. I was the one suffering. I understood now how a dog felt, having a delicious meal set before it only to be forcibly restrained from taking a bite. There you were, your stomach completely empty with the food calling out to you, begging you to devour it, and you couldn't. You could gulp down as much water as you wanted to try and temporarily satisfy the ache in your belly, but it was a futile effort. The meal wouldn't disappear and your stomach would feel empty again soon enough. You're really cute, Eris. I'm desperately trying to resist the temptation to do anything to you. Fine. I guess if that's how it has to be, next time you can touch me, but only a little bit, okay? Her face was bright tomato red. It was really adorable. However, there was far too great of a gap between the enormity of my desire and the little that she offered. Unfortunately, just a little isn't going to cut it. Please, let's wait until you're ready for me to dive in and have my way with you. Eris was speechless. I didn't want her to feel my expectations. I wanted her to let me keep that promise I made to her. If I broke it and put my hands on her, we would both be upset about it afterwards. Anyway, let's get going. Okay, sure. Eris recovered quickly and was soon in high spirits as we started walking towards the town. The townscape before us was not much different than Windport. This was Zantport, a city at the northern edge of the Millis continent. Millis continent. We were finally here, yet we still had a long way to go. Rudius, what's wrong? No, it's nothing. Best to forget about how long our journey would be. The important thing right now was setting out for the next city. Before we did that, however, we needed to get some money and buy a horse. Before that, we had to finish our current job. Now that we had come this far, it was time to see this mission completion.
You couldn't use Nokopara?
Jesus Christ. He's just galloping over there like, guys, I'm coming.
That's what she said.
Yeah, not that one, you know.
No,
I'm on my way.
Oh, God.
Water.
Oh, why did you put that image in my brain?
What of him like leaping across the water?
And doing the neigh and everything.
He is part horse.
Yeah, it's true, but now it's like he's supposed to be this
Remember,
tough
kids.
guy rat.
Remember,
it's not
kids.
wanna be.
Tomorrow in the U.S. it's
James
voting day. You can
Baxter.
vote yay or nay.
God.
He's just on a
Cute.
fucking beach hurtling towards them over the
All right.
water.
We gotta.
James
Was
we gotta
this the
finish.
beach
We're so-
episode with Horseman?
We're so close to this.
You
Please, let's
understand.
just finish.
Yeah, okay. That said, our job didn't start until nightfall. We still had some time before then, so what to do? We had already exchanged our money on the Demon Continent, so there was no need to visit the Adventurers Guild. I decided we would get ourselves an inn. That way, we could recover from our tiring journey on a ship. Our job came later. Reger would have to suffer in his uncomfortable living conditions a little while longer, but, well, he would just have to endure. That was how we arrived on the Millis Continent.
And there we go, my guy. That was technically
Hey.
more than 4 chapters, but
Oh.
you went through it, man. You did Windport, Misconnections, the prequel, the sequel, the extra story, and chapter 4. So that's 5 whole chapters of content.
Oh,
Do you realize we're 41% of the way through this book and you just started at
fucking
0?
shit.
Yes! You fucking ate, my dude. 116 out of 276 pages. You
Water
ate
out of that, too.
good today.
Thanks.
You chewed through this book, my dude. All right,
I think I
Moon
went from,
Moon,
like,
you'll be
49
next
to
week.
22 ounces of water. Christ.
Moon Moon, you'll be next
Okay.
week.
Yeah, you got this, man. Oh. Christ.
I dare you to do better, sir.
I didn't even realize.
Go for an even 50.
Yeah, no, if he puts us at
Oh
an
my
even
God.
50 from there, that puts us at like 91. Might as well just let him finish the fucking book at that point.
Jesus.
If
Yeah,
there's only
you're getting
9%
that.
left in the book, we might as well just go a little extra over. But yeah, guys, that was it for tonight. I'm going to be uploading this shortly, but thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed this shemtastic reading that we have had going so far. I like
I hope
that.
you
The
enjoyed my not
shemtastic
safe for
reading.
work moaning out of the blue. Jesus.
That was so funny, dude. That was very, very funny.
It worked though. Thumbs up. I did my best.
Oh no.
Oh God.
Oh no.
Oh dear. Oh man. Oh geez. Oh man. Oh God. Oh geez.
Alrighty, man.
Oh.
Well,
Anyway,
I think
good work.
we're gonna raid
Mm.
Yui, who is currently playing.
Cool.
She is currently playing Silent Hill 2.
I wonder who got the clay statue. I was watching her stream and she was doing like a Garfield cart thing.
Oh,
Oh,
And,
yeah.
like, whoever won would get like a Yui Kai statue, and I was like, that's pretty cool.
is it a
But that
is
would
it a Yui
require
Kai cosplay statue? Because that's
no.
a whole. Oh,
Well,
damn, that'd have been
No,
cool.
but
That would've been
still
kinda cool, though.
really good statue. Really.
Mhm.
Yeah, whoever made that clay figure was really
Handmade.
talented.
Nice.
I was like,
Yeah.
wow.
All right, guys.
was
Well,
really
we're gonna
cool.
go raid Yui. So
Okay.
get
Here
ready
we
with the
go.
book club raid. That being
Yeah,
said,
Get the
guys.
Yui
Let me get a
mobile.
Oh yeah, she just died. That's even better. Now's the time to raid.
Haha.
Welcome.
Like, just come in. Like, is now a good time to chime in?
Perfect time
Technically
to
would
raid.
be. Yep.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Here we go.
We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye for now.
Thanks for
We'll be back.
coming. Goodbye.
Fun Friday. We'll be back for Fun Friday shenanigans, and of course, Sunday we will be doing the light novel and or not the light novel, the solo leveling and anime church. So hang into there.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Where's me wife?
Oh. Hi.